My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California. Notice: intellectual property theft is particularly egregious and equally unlawful where the sole inventor and creator of the intellectual property is the targeted individual. Erica Lorraine Spencer, subject to the unconstitutional and inhumane government system of gang stalking, otherwise referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices, because of which the intellectual property created by the targeted individual, who is, in fact, Erica Lorraine Spencer, as the intellectual property also proves, serves to establish via evidence and expose the existence of criminal surveillance and thus an inherent threat posed by the U.S. government and the civilian population sharing engagement in the unlawful system. Such evidence, that includes all of the content created by Erica Lorraine Spencer, images, videos, audio, etc., belongs solely and entirely to Erica Lorraine Spencer only and is necessarily published online in order to protect her life, safety, and liberty as the targeted individual, who is also the intellectual property owner, no less protected from theft procured through targeting by a public entity. Theft of any intellectual property belonging to Erica Lorraine Spencer, which is necessarily committed while she, being both creator and inventor, remains oppressed by the public entity via criminal surveillance, is a criminal and inhumane means of infringement under all circumstances and not protected nor enforceable pursuant to any invalid or fraudulent acts of copyright, trademarks, patents, etc., including as it pertains to any ideas associated with or generated from the intellectual property or the intellectual property owner, Erica Lorraine Spencer, whether creative, business, or otherwise, nor does the intellectual property owner consent to any such means of infringement and theft. Erica Lorraine Spencer here. The following is an audio version of video evidence that is captured for purposes of mass distribution, which is why I am capturing it and sharing it on the podcast for evidentiary purposes and also to reveal the wealth of documentation that extends beyond what it is that I document on podcasts. Much of the video and images will be published onto the YouTube channel, the P.O.C., and it is also shared on the Google Drive. Again, this is for purposes of revealing what I remain subject to, which is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is a demonic system of state surveillance that the government is practicing in concert with the people of the state, and it should be known and well understood that for the government to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, this is a crime that is committed with a criminal purpose to threaten the life of an American citizen. This is to conspire to murder and or permanently kidnap an American citizen while engaging in a perpetual sex offense in concert with the people of the state. Okay, this is a third-party crossing path in engineered light with Ontario Police at the same time, and the entity sounding the reminiscent of gunshots, where the Ontario Police cross path in a vehicle. And as I am documenting that, the Ontario Police that were already present in helicopter immediately start sounding helicopter as that third party begins walking. He walks out of Woodside Senior Apartments, flying right over my head and doing so in a specific environment. So This is the P.O.C. Ontario Police creating audible activity, the sound of gunshots, while they are speeding down G Street, crossing path, gang stalking me by both their vehicles under the fake moon and an engineered light. One shadow, two shadows, magnified in size. Ontario Police threatening my life with the sound of gunshots, threatening my life by stalking me in the middle of the night with helicopters, threatening my life by stalking me with their police vehicles surrounding me all night long. In the demonic environment where they're clearly targeting as well. Using the sound of, the amplified sound of what is reminiscent of gunshots is the gang stalking police department that engaged in kidnapping and who was stalking me in the middle of the night routinely, and hundreds of videos using helicopter as well. They're doing so with the intent, communicating that intent to take my life. The reminiscence of the sound of a gunshot. And then the crossing path by Ontario Police. And then again, upon experiencing that, observing that, the Ontario Police Department flying over my head. This is impossible light activity. That's crossing path. They're gang stalking with the Ontario Police. And this is, again, the specific environment where the Ontario Police are also stalking me in that plaza. With knowledge of the fact that I'm documenting the people of the state, that I'm documenting that they're obsessed with my vagina, that I'm documenting the fact that C. Torres is going to federal prison for this gang stalking system that he was engaged in when he engaged in kidnapping on May 29, 2025, that Nathan Morgan's going to federal prison. He engaged in kidnapping with the Ontario Police Department and the people of the state while he was gang stalking me, just like the Ontario Police Department is gang stalking now and engaging what is criminal summoning with the people of the state, exhibiting demon possession by virtue of the malice that is inherent to that pattern of conduct. And so is L. Martinez and B. Hook. They're going to federal prison. All right, this is the entity that's again showing that they're targeting by flying in circles over me in helicopter under the fake moon and in light that is inexplicable under a street lamp. That lamp creates one shadow underneath you, not a shadow that is again perpendicular to each other. While the police are sounding gunshots and flying over me, flying around me, and driving by me, communicating a threat. That's how the demon-possessed communicate a threat when they're monitoring as well. And so are the people of the state threatening my life, gang stalking with the Ontario Police Department, who engaged in kidnapping at this very community, Woodside Senior Apartments. The people of the state are going to federal prison at Woodside Senior Apartments for engaging in gang stalking like that third party is, by living at Woodside and criminally summoning the gang stalkers, the Ontario Police, and then committing kidnapping together. All right, the entity engaging in what is waging false allegations while they're gang stalking you, they lie about what it is that you've done in order that gang stalking police department will kidnap you. And then they claim to have authority under the law. This is what is putting Nathan Morgan in federal prison. This is what's putting L. Martinez in federal prison. Pay attention to the light activity. The Ontario Police is gang stalking, and the audible activity method is the sound of gunshots. All right. And then you have what is a third party that walks out of Woodside Senior Apartments right here, crosses path. Remember, he's walking in engineer light, monitoring me while doing so as the Ontario Police flies over my head, flies in a circle again and crosses path. Is still stalking. Again, immediately sounded helicopter activity. Didn't come from a distance sounding helicopter activity. Immediately sounds helicopter activity in sync with the demon that came out of the Woodside Senior Apartments community, walking in the sidewalk in order to cross path with me. This is what the demons are doing under the fake sun at Starbucks. That's over there from 7:25 a.m. as I document until 7:26 p.m. where the people of the state are gang stalking at Starbucks. They're crossing path by being in the cafe buying coffee drinks, just like this gang stalking demon is crossing path walking in an engineered light while the Ontario Police Department is gang stalking at what is it's 1:07 in the morning, where the police department is creating an ongoing record regarding their ceaseless gang stalking following the kidnapping that they committed as a department, as a state, an entity that is targeting me on May 29, 2025. Arrowhead Regional Medical Center is gang stalking with the Ontario Police. This is P.O.C. The entity that's gang stalking, I will be documenting them by name. The demon-possessed medical professionals that were engaging what is kidnapping via abuse of the Welfare Institution Code, acting pursuant to a state system of criminal monitoring. The police targeting with the people of the state in concert with the court that's engaging what is an exercise of fictitious authority while they're manufacturing charges in order to defame, which is why this is how they kidnap. This is what Arrowhead Regional Medical Center is directly engaged in. They're going to prison. The entity's system is imploding. While they engage in criminal conduct as an entity, it's incriminating everybody else that's a part of that same gang stalking entity. It is currently 1:08 a.m. The entity's sounding gunshots. That's a demon stalking with light, perfectly aligned to the path at 7-Eleven at 636 North Vine Avenue. In the path, monitoring with the Ontario Police, and so is 325 West G Street, 322 West G Street. The entity gang stalking at Woodside Senior Apartments. All 144 units that I stated are gang stalking are indeed gang stalking, including right now at 1 o'clock in the morning, where the police department are very highly uneducated and ill-equipped and lacking in prudence with regard to a legal strategy when a police department is going to be put on the map for domestic terrorism in the United States, removed permanently from law enforcement, and put in federal prison for kidnapping. And its co-defendant, the people of the state, are going to suffer federal prison as well. It is currently 1:09 a.m. This is what Tracy Banks is engaged in when she's summoning the Ontario Police Department to her apartment and making allegations that are blatantly false. And the documentation that I have is showing that they're lying to each other in my presence. And then they committed kidnapping by just stating that I aggressively attacked her, and the police engage in kidnapping. This is P.O.C. You're walking in this monitoring with the police that sound gunshots and fly over your head in helicopter. That's the pattern of conduct. Yuck. It is currently 1:09 a.m. That's P.O.C. That's the Ontario Police Department gang stalking at the Tabor Professional Building. Engaging in exhibiting severe mental illness, again, that demonic pacing over me. They're obsessed with me. They're obsessed, but they're also hostile toward me. That's that demon possession. That's inspiring what is also public corruption, where the demon possessed population are gang stalking me in concert with the Ontario Police Department. The Ontario Police Department is going to be disbanded, and you're witnessing the process to that. P.O.C. Okay, this is documentation of real life psychopaths. So the Ontario Police Department crossing path again in 2 vehicles after the entity is crossing path by flying in a circle over my head by helicopter. And that's after they engaged in the harmful method, the psychological torture method of what is sounding gunshots and then crossing path in the same manner that they did right now. So the entity is engaging in what is the inability to control themselves, but they're actually mentally ill, and they are engaging in what is trying to conceal that. But as I document them, the demons are very much triggered, and they're engaging in heavy stalking. That's what you're seeing resulting in. And remember, they're doing it in the video that you listen to. My shadow is perpendicular. This is speaking to the specific environment. So the Ontario Police Department are indeed engaged in criminal surveillance, and they are proven to be stalking in an environment where engineer light is present. And they're proven to be stalking when they are also keeping the evidence of their stalking conduct under surveillance as well. So these are the raging psychopaths that are engaging in that P.O.C. with the people of the state. License 1680792, vehicle 1109, stalking at 7-Eleven with this demon 9EBN169, stalking with impossible light. That's not their headlights. That's crawling all over the vehicle like cockroaches. It's engineer light. License 1591672, vehicle 1031, engaging in surveillance in relevant position at 7-Eleven at 636 North Vine Avenue, where Jason Knighton and Lester Keys engaged in kidnapping on January 6th, I believe 2020, where the entity was engaged in what is criminal summoning. And they're monitoring right now with 7-Eleven that's creating light activity with a large truck, a means of what is a delivery. They're stalking in the path with light while the Ontario Police Department was flying over my head in helicopter. They're monitoring. License 85781D4. This is P.O.C. This is all relevant to the entity gang stalking as of the kidnapping committed on May 29, 2025. They're in the specific environment, not merely making a purchase at 7-Eleven. They're engaging in the pattern of conduct, and these are demons that lack self-control. Their maniacal, psychopathic personality disorders are bearing themselves, and the entity just engaged in flying over my head by helicopter and then going to 7-Eleven, crossing path, both of them together, in order to engage in what is communicating a threat with that passive-aggressive gang stalking conduct. 1591672, vehicle 1031, federal prison. License 1683792. The front plate is scratched off. Again, that's vehicle 1109, vehicle license 1680792. This is P.O. These are the two demons stalking after the entity flies over my head by helicopter. Again, they're in engineer light. And these are the demons that are very much psychopaths. They're listening to me document, and they engage in what is an act of retaliation by coming in the path in your line of vision. That's a communication of a threat when they're gang stalking you, and they're in the specific environment. 7-Eleven is gang stalking with them. That's light activity. He's making a delivery in engineer light, okay? The entity is doing so in a specific environment. You can see my shadow. It's a stuttered shadow. That's activity creation. His shadow's on both sides of his person. They're gang stalking with the city police. Ontario Police Department come to the 7-Eleven, monitoring me after, again, flying over me by helicopter. That's relevant to what 7-Eleven in relevant position is committing as well. It's called light activity, relevant positioning. And also, by the way, this is Woodside Senior Apartments, where the Ontario Police Department has been targeting me as of 2024 of September until the present kidnapping that they engaged in May of 2025. This is the entity that's gang stalking with the people of the state, license 9NZY181, and I'm documenting, also supplementing the evidence on podcast. So again, I just want to be clear, what you're listening on the podcast and video, this is chronology. The entity is crossing path. Ontario police are stalking in the middle of the night. The police department itself, they're all in their vehicles and they're pacing all around me. This is what their patrolling is about, and they're doing so in the specific environment. There's the fake moon. All right, the entity is engaging in what is, let me show you my shadow here so you can understand that the Ontario Police Department are demons and they're stalking me. All right, they're doing so. This is a fake moon that's remaining over me. That's absolutely impossible light activity way down at the end of another building over here on the sidewalk. Okay, Ontario police just engaged in stalking, sounding the amplified sound of reminiscent of a gunshot, and then a demon crosses path speeding down G Street. Immediately following, a demon from Woodside Senior Apartments, a homosexual African-American male, while he is switching in engineer light, the Ontario Police Department fly directly over my head, fly in a circle, and then patrol back, flying over me again, and then fly away. The Ontario Police Department that are triggered by my documentation as I laugh about the fact that they are serving to disband themselves. Two more demons that lack self-control and engineer light. Nope, they're keeping me under surveillance, and these demons are psychopaths, and their mental illness is exhibited not only through this environment. Their mental illness is exhibited through this environment. Psychopaths gang stalking in some secret manner that you're never supposed to know about. It's public corruption. They're making a delivery in engineer light. They are monitoring with the police public corruption that you're never supposed to know about. And their actual reason for being here is monitoring, and they're very triggered because I am exposing them as the stalkers that they've been for years. Those two officers are going to federal prison for that. I just want to be clear. They engage in murdering people. They engage in kidnapping people. They engage in conspiring, setting people up. And I am the one that is exposing them, and they are losing it with regard to their inability to control themselves instead of staying off of my camera, because all they're doing is monitoring. You're not free to be in relevant position. You're not free to even live irrelevant. The government's monitoring. So let's get to the principle of the matter. But you could go to a different 7-Eleven. You could go to several. We're not going to entertain an illusion like they're not gang stalking. They're gang stalking, and they cannot control themselves. And I keep documenting more and documenting more and documenting more. They're going to federal prison. Gang stalking police officers that cannot control themselves either, they have no business in law enforcement in the first place. Those are the unstable psychopaths that murder people. They murder people on a whim. That police department justifies their conduct. The police department that's gang stalking American citizens justifies their conduct. The gang stalking courthouses that are monitoring, they justify their conduct. And this is how you have raging psychopaths that are in law enforcement in this country, and they're monitoring American citizens. Those two demons went into 7-Eleven. They're on surveillance camera. The entity is pacing on Euclid Avenue, gang stalking me, focused on me, and they're also focused on my vagina. They're focused on my vagina, the genitalia between my legs, what it is, that the moment that I pull my panties down, like every other sex offender that's up monitoring with the entity that flew over me by helicopter, flew in a circle over me by helicopter. That's how obsessed with my vagina the Ontario Police Department, including those two demons that went into 7-Eleven, the most pathetic, cowardly means of stalking somebody. Because they want to maintain an appearance one way, but they're actually maniacal psychopaths who are stalking, and they're demon possessed. The demon possessed are being removed from law enforcement. And in Ontario, the Ontario Police Department is being disbanded. This is P.O.C. It's 1 o'clock where the Ontario Police Department is engaging in violence against women, sounding gunshots and then pacing all around me in helicopter and in police vehicles, which is not only gang stalking, it's a communication of an unlawful threat upon analyzing the specific environment where monitoring is underway. The Ontario Police Department is being disbanded. Here's my shadow here. Here's my shadow here. The entity is obsessively gang stalking. P.O.C. It is Thursday. Still, it's June 12th, 2025, and you're listening to the City of Ontario engaged in gang stalking. While the people of the state who are in the shoes of the City of Ontario, they're in the shoes of the state, they're pacing around in the specific environment that surrounds me for their monitoring purposes. They're gang stalking. So that's the entity is stalking altogether. And that is why you have what is the inexplicable conduct of the airport, engaging in behaviors such as planes taking off over the Ontario City Hall, the Ontario Senior Center, and the Ontario Senior Citizen Complex, the 280 North Limit Apartments, where which is adjacent to the Ovid Family Community Library. It's speaking to my position, my location, and also that inexplicable maintenance of that conduct where the airport is at 2900 Airport Road, and there's no taking off from that airport location. It is the same City of Ontario that is gang stalking, which includes the Ontario Police Department, which you hear very heavily stalking last night using helicopters and using the Ontario Police Department, the City of Ontario resources of that police department who are gang stalking. As I document the license plates, I document the vehicle numbers, I document on video, and it's all happening in that specific environment. And that includes where I'm at right now, where I've already documented the entity keeping a fake sun from sunrise until sunset since 2018, actually. So this is ongoing continuity. And the Ontario City Hall is engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. That's where Paul Leon is engaged in the P.O.C. right now. That's amplified plane activity where Paul Leon is gang stalking. And so is the City of Ontario, the entity that is the municipality. They're maintaining a relevant position. That's amplified plane activity, which is not coming from an airport or a plane taking off from the airport. And it is the entity engaging in the same conduct as you see them flying over me at Woodside Senior Apartments. This is the criminal conduct of the City of Ontario that is engaged in criminal monitoring, aerial surveillance, the satanic targeting system of maintaining the elements of monitoring, while the municipality, the City of Ontario also are using municipality vehicles as a method of light activity like I've been documenting, engaging in that satanic conduct, that terrorism of stalking with light. They do that during the day, maintaining light activity on the vehicles themselves. So they're surrounding in relevant position while demons are engaging what is crossing a path using commercial airline planes. And the plane activity, that's again the guise of what is nothing other than demonic. It's as demonic as the sun sitting over the Ovid Family Community Library from 10 a.m. until after 6 p.m. It's the satanic means of noise, while the demon-possessed surround with light activity in an environment that is supernatural. It's an engineered environment, meaning the light that's touching everything is not sunlight. The light source that's above is not the sun. And at nightfall, that moon that remains over me is not the moon. It's a way which you're identifying the environment where gang stalking by the demon possessed that is targeting is underway, and Paul Leon is a part of that, while the Ontario City Hall is in relevant position, and the Ontario International Airport, the City of Ontario, is engaging in what is a massive public means, a group means of audible activity creation, while he is stalking in the path and doing so in a position as a government official, and doing so while also he's engaged in federal stalking. The City of Ontario, the Ontario City Council, the facilitating venue of the Ontario City Council off of B Street, which is right over here to my right as I'm seated at the Ovid Family Community Library, where the Ontario Police is gang stalking by helicopter. Paul Leon is a gang stalker. Like I stated that, and I documented it while I'm inside of Tracy Banks' apartment at Woodside Senior Apartments. It's the same when I'm at the same plaza where the City Hall is located, and I am being targeted with plane activity in the specific environment, documenting where the fake sun rises and sets. Understand that his office is adjacent to the Ovid Family Community Library, where my vagina is being kept under surveillance, and he's engaged in that sexual violence at Woodside Senior Apartments. He's engaged in that sexual violence while I'm inside of the Ovid Family Community Library, where the Ontario City Hall, Paul Leon's facilitating venue, where his criminal conduct is identified with regard to what office he's to be removed from, what criminal conduct of the city that he's responsible for, what criminal conduct he's engaging in, while the people of the state, the population, sharing it. What I want to document is while you're hearing that amplified plane activity, which is an ongoing admission to gang stalking by the city of Ontario. The same city of Ontario you'll see in images as the city of Ontario is providing what is ongoing evidence of stalking by the city of Ontario as well, which includes the Ontario Police, which is why they engaged in kidnapping. And that is kidnapping when you're stalking. And the evidence preceding a kidnapping that happened on May 29, 2025 is it's already published on the worldwide internet via podcast and on my website, images, video, and podcast. But it's also published on social media platforms where everyone could witness the stalking conduct of a government that then engages in what's going to be prosecuted as nothing other than kidnapping, where they are engaging in what is the surveillance and then masquerading as a law enforcement. It is preposterous, but it's also criminal. And these are demons that are doing that. And these demons were up all night stalking and doing so in a demonic environment. This is the same demonic environment that remains while aerial surveillance is a massive means of the group's engagement in audible activity while they're all pacing around. Cleaning the city is City of Ontario gang stalking, creating light activity and stalking in the path, while planes are the guise of massive noise where they're all monitoring together. And they're all engaged in federal stalking under Title 18 together, and that includes Paul Leon, the entire city hall. That is in relevant position, by the way. The entity, and you need to understand, where I'm in Ontario and the entity's keeping a fake sun, the city hall, Paul Leon, and the office is engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. It's a gang stalking city council. And I've thoroughly documented that in order to make sure that that is understood, because that is what is inevitable when the city is engaged in criminal monitoring, like the Ontario Police, the Ontario International Airport, the Ontario Fire Department, American Medical Response, who's contracted with the City of Ontario for ambulance services, but they're engaging in federal group stalking and monitoring. That's what public corruption is exposing about the contract with American Medical Response. They're gang stalkers that use ambulances to engage in domestic terrorism and psychological torture while they bear a logo, and all they're doing is engaging what is stalking in that specific environment and demonstrating demon possession while they use ambulances to engage in light activity, amplified audible activity, and while they're literally stalking from place to place. And the proof of their stalking is the specific environment where they are at, the engineer light is at, where they are at, they are engaging in what is the ongoing pattern of conduct, in other words. So the last point that I want to bring up is the entity that's gang stalking. It's currently 8:17 a.m. The entities engaging in the pattern of conduct of gang stalking that is inevitable with regard to Paul Leon's criminal engagement in that. And what is so also ironic is the City of Ontario is also sending, and by sending, I put that in air quotes because that's like calling the police that aren't already stalking in relevant position, aren't already monitoring you. So you have the entity, the City of Ontario, that's talking to me about, and that's audible activity creation, while the City of Ontario is stalking around with light activity, and the City of Ontario is stalking with plane activity, and the City of Ontario is always stalking through the Ontario Police Department. The entity is engaging in what is the quote-unquote provision of information about the City of Ontario resources for those who are navigation services, as they refer to it, on a flyer, a phone number, where the entity is abusing Measure Q, where I surmise the City of Ontario has been, again, given resources that it is criminally misusing, abusing, not even genuinely providing access to people that are in genuine need of resources. Worse, Measure Q is in acknowledgement of the homeless population. I want to be clear, the homeless in Ontario are gang stalking. And not only that, the homelessness that I am documenting while I'm subject to the pattern of conduct is a direct result of gang stalking by the state of California. Reference my documentation of the LAPD engaging in federal group stalking and monitoring as I remain in Los Angeles at the same time of year, which is also how you know that the City of Ontario is gang stalking, which is the demonic system, because the sun that's remaining over me in Los Angeles, where LAPD is gang stalking by helicopter on an ongoing basis, is excluding that the natural environment would include the sun at any point in the day being over Family Community Library, where the Ontario City Hall is adjacent to that building, and Paul Leon is gang stalking me. The Ontario City Council and that government building is engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring by virtue of being a facilitating venue, and I've also documented that. But nonetheless, the entity is engaged in gang stalking in the City of Ontario, and all of the ways in which you're recognizing corruption and criminal abuse of resources that a government is literally squandering while they're using things like helicopters and airplanes and police vehicles, fire trucks and ambulances to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, to engage in what is resources that are utilized in order to target an American citizen, in order to engage in what is violence against a woman, stalking. And doing so for no legitimate purpose whatsoever. This is the demon possessed, I want to be clear. And the city of Ontario is speaking to me this morning about what is homeless services, which there are none, but they're providing a lot of information that is common sense. And homelessness also is not necessarily rooted in mental health issues, as I'm also speaking to and exposing, while the entity is engaging in what is projecting its mental illness onto myself, the person whom they're targeting. And the psychopaths are engaging in what is speaking about the homeless services, which essentially there are not any. And while they're doing so, they're in relevant position. The conversation is literally audible activity. They're doing so while the Ontario International Airport, who you hear gang stalking in the background, they are gang stalking as the city of Ontario under the guise of being someone that's providing information that's supposed to help you with regard to your homelessness, your homeless situation, or your at-risk circumstance for homelessness. And this is, again, that duplicity of the government that is engaging in the federal group stalking and monitoring system. And that's what I'm encapsulated. That is what is encapsulated in the images that I'm taking. These two females are gang stalking, and they're associated with the city of Ontario. They're giving a flyer. They're giving an information. They're engaging in what is this disingenuous conversation, this exchange of, oh, where are you from? Remember, the entity knows exactly who I'm at to keep the fake sun over me. The entity knows exactly who I'm at to engage in what is stalking in the manner that I've shown by planes and helicopter. The entity knows exactly who I am with regard to the ongoing pattern of conduct of the manufacturing information and my ability to prove that the entity is manufacturing information. It's not just me stating, oh, they're all lying, but I don't have any proof to show that everybody is lying. The documentation is showing how the entity that is gang stalking also engages in a pattern of targeting, which is identified through making false, that are malicious assertions while they are stalking. And why are they making those assertions? To engage in kidnapping. It's pursuant to criminal summoning. So nonetheless, the city of Ontario is engaging in what is gang stalking while at the same time representing the city of Ontario, passing out flyers about the city of Ontario's Measure Q for homeless services, which they don't have any, and they're not providing any while they're gang stalking. So this is speaking to all the ways in which, again, Paul Leon's being removed from office. The Ontario International Airport that's gang stalking me while I'm outside of his office is the mayor that's going to be removed from office. The Ontario International Airport is providing evidence against the Ontario Police Department, who provide evidence against themselves. The Ontario Police Department engaged in gang stalking and helicopter flying over the top of my head last night again, while they cannot control themselves from stalking me. They also can't control themselves from monitoring my vagina. And then the same city of Ontario approaches me while they're monitoring with the same city of Ontario. The city of Ontario has multiple functions. All functions are gang stalking. The functions that are flying planes, the functions that are feigning engaging in law enforcement while they're engaged in criminal surveillance, the function that is sitting in a business, in an office, calling itself the local government body, the function that is out cleaning and servicing the grounds of the city is engaging in the elements of monitoring. They're all gang stalking together, and out of the mouth of these gang stalkers of the city of Ontario, and purportedly with funds that they've been provided to abuse them and disingenuously communicate about the availability of resources for people that are in a homeless state that the entity has created, by the way. The entity is engaging in what is monitoring at the same time. So the city of Ontario is gang stalking with plane activity while the city of Ontario is talking about resources that they have for homelessness. And I want to be clear, this is nothing other than a precursor to the gang stalkers who are the Ontario Police Department, who don't have any authority under the municipal code with regard to what the entity is referring to. Engaging in what is law enforcement and referencing, citing, camping as a violation of the law when they also are engaging in what is criminal conduct of criminal surveillance, and engaging in what is kidnapping to commit an unlawful eviction with Tracy Banks while they've been engaged in gang stalking me the entire time. This is going to why the Ontario Police Department, they're going to federal prison. So every time that the entity is engaging in this, understand why C. Torres, El Martinez, Nathan Morgan, and B-Hook are going to federal prison. This is the very system that is serving for what is literally the how preposterous it is for the entity to engage in criminal conduct, and then at the same time want to cite what is, oh, well, that would be a camping violation, and when the entity is engaged in what is stalking you in order to, first of all, gain any sort of information about where it is that you're allegedly sleeping. But second of all, remember at the outset, the entity engaged in an unlawful eviction from Tracy Banks' apartment where the Ontario Police Department were gang stalking. The city of Ontario was gang stalking the whole time. That's why the fake sun is rising at 6:33 a.m. at Tracy Banks' apartment as a matter of video documentation, and setting at 6:18 p.m. at Tracy Banks' apartment as a matter of video documentation, which is a supernatural environment, which is also how you know that Paul Leon's office and the city council, the city hall, is a facilitating venue where the city of Ontario is gang stalking and squandering, criminally abusing resources under things such as Measure Q to provide homeless resources where they're not engaging in any genuine resources for the targeted individual, who is myself, and whose homelessness is the product of gang stalking by the government itself. And by the way, having nothing to do with what is mental health issues, like the law that the gang stalking entity abuses and exercises fictitious authority under in order to kidnap as well. This is speaking to, again, all the things that I'm advocating on behalf of with regard to the reality of a corrupt government that's engaging in criminal monitoring while they are stalking an American citizen. And all the obvious ways that they're doing so is pointing the finger right back at them with regard to who's guilty of it and who is also going to be responsible for it, whether or not Paul Leon is ever going to address that demon who was a fake pastor and a criminal as a gang stalking mayor, whether he's engaged in gang stalking or not. I don't need him to say anything. You will see the fake sun over the Ontario City Hall. You will see the entity gang stalking me by commercial planes while I'm at the Ontario City Hall. You will see the entity keeping a fake sun over me, and that there could never be any sun over the Ontario City Hall while it's rising and setting in Los Angeles and over at Woodside Senior Apartments, which is not simultaneous with being over the Ontario City Hall. The entity is engaging in what is a body of evidence, the provision of a body of evidence, which is speaking to your ability to analyze the criminal conduct of the government, where I'm blowing the whistle on the law enforcement agency that is a terrorist organization. Quoting laws that they have no authority under and that they need in order to commit kidnapping. The entity engaged in what is a kidnapping pursuant to an unlawful eviction where you're gang stalking at the outset. You don't have any authority under the camping provisions of the municipal code. And this is what the Ontario Police Department is relying on in order to commit a kidnapping. And this is what they've engaged in before. This is why the Ontario Police, who are on video and who are documented on May 29, 2025, are going to federal prison. All right, that's exactly why. That's how this corrupt system operates with regard to the ordinary targeted individual being caught up in the system, and where the entity is engaging in what the entity, where a corrupt government is engaging in what the entity committed against me. For example, malicious assertions about mental health, just naming mental illnesses and naming things like medication, no details, no information, no facts, just throwing it in, just injecting it into an exchange, makes it a reality amongst the gang stalkers. And that's what that created universe, that created reality, is what then a gang stalker, the medical facility, relies on in order to create what is mental illness on paper, which is all that the entity needs to adjudicate, and that is to kidnap and defame on paper. That is literally not the absence of, not the practice of medicine. It's not the practice of law. That's not how the law operates. That's also not how law enforcement works either. And that's not the authority given under the Welfare and Institutions Code. The entity is abusing it and my ability to document it, and also show you step by step by what they're doing, and then correct it with regard to legal analysis. And I'm literally living through it, and I'm going to prosecute for it as well. But the entity is all outside of the bounds of the law and what the law actually requires. And just because you are creating those circumstances by gang stalking someone, that does not create what is fitting what the law is articulating with regard to a particular circumstance, what the law defines as probable cause or authority to bring to a medical facility. That's not the same when the entity is gang stalking, and that's what the Ontario Police are doing. That's what the City of Ontario is doing. And the entity that is very unintelligent, just demonic and obsessed and very corrupt, they engage in criminal conduct and fail to understand and recognize that the city's criminal engagement in federal group stalking and monitoring, such as the City of Ontario, a documented and established gang stalker, their engagement in that is directly pointing to what is the City of Ontario, the Ontario Police Department gang stalking as well, in addition to what is my unilateral engagement in the investigation of the U.S. government, documenting the fact that the government, the City of Ontario, the Ontario Police Department, they're a bunch of gang stalking demons, and the evidence also proves that. But what the City of Ontario is doing, the Ontario Police Department is doing. It's the entity's conduct, and that's how you're going to get to that. Well, how do you get to a police department's criminal conduct? By the city's engagement in, because it's group conduct, and it's the prosecution of a conspiracy that is inevitable with regard to their engagement in that pattern of conduct. And the City of Ontario is engaging in the same pattern of conduct of the people of the state. No matter what the individual's name is, that individual is acting as an entity, and you are inevitably getting to that police department. In addition to that police department providing me a wealth of evidence of them stalking me day and night, and that is also serving for what you are able to understand is what is the Ontario Police Department, the terrorist organization, feigning as a legitimate law enforcement agency, relying on the laws that are legitimate. The Constitution is legitimate. It is the abuse of those laws by corrupt and criminal actors that is rendering their exercise of authority under it illegitimate. And that is where you're going to federal prison for kidnapping. The entity is engaging in what is this sort of conduct with the City of Ontario, who's talking about homeless services, while the entity is gang stalking by playing activity at the same time. That is the City of Ontario threatening me in my face, talking about homeless services, engaging in the elements of monitoring, and at the same time, the City of Ontario is gang stalking by the police, gang stalking with the people of the state, those demons that are flinging light all over the place. They're pacing all around, monitoring, and they're doing so with the entity that's sounding, creating light activity by the City of Ontario in relevant position, and also plane activity by flying over me at the same time that I'm being told about resources that the City of Ontario is not genuinely extending with regard to their gang stalking me, and relying on quoting law that the Ontario Police Department has no authority under the municipal code, any law, because they're gang stalking. They're engaged in criminal surveillance. And that is what the Ontario Police Department is relying on to commit kidnapping. And it's going back to who's going to federal prison. Okay, that includes what is C. Torres. He's going to federal prison. So is L. Martinez. She's going to federal prison. The entity is engaging in what is gang stalking, committing an unlawful eviction, where I'm subject to gang stalking at Woodside Senior Apartments, and then committing kidnapping, where I'm now in the circumstance where the Ontario Police is still gang stalking, knowing exactly who I am, where I'm at, where I'm going, and my documenting them stalking day by day, moment by moment, night after night, is evidence of that. And that's also evidence of what is the intent to kidnap, while you're referring to laws that you have no authority under, because the law enforcement does not include stalking, and then referring to laws that you are purportedly in violation of, and which you are not when you're being gang stalked. So this is, again, understanding the reason and purposes for the laws as they exist. They don't just exist in a vacuum. They don't just exist for no purpose whatsoever. And they do not exist for the abuse of a government that's engaging what is criminal conduct to then surround an American citizen that has been placed in a circumstance. This is not pushing blame. This is not, this is advocating on behalf of the ordinary target individual that's going to be someone that cannot advocate, that is overwhelmed with circumstances that they are forced into, while the government is then abusing the laws that are not created, that are not designed to create that sort of conclusion, that sort of result. And the entity is under all circumstances the criminal, and that's never going to cease to be the fact. And that's also not going to be forgotten when the entity wants to be seen as legitimate and prosecuting anybody. Even the traffic stop of the demon-possessed people of the state is illegitimate by the Ontario Police Department. That's what you need to understand. They're going to be disbanded, and they're going to also be prosecuted, and federal prison is mandated for this sort of public corruption where the entity is gang stalking with the City of Ontario that you hear in the background. It's 8:33 a.m. over the Ovitt Family Community, adjacent to the Ovitt Family Community Library. So this is suggesting that planes are hovering over the College of Law, Laverne College of Law, the Ontario City Hall, the 280 North Lemon Apartments, and the B Street City of Ontario Senior Center, which is again out of the zoning. There's no planes taking off from the airport, which is again south of this location. The entity is necessarily deviating from the airport and hovering and deviating from the airport in order to be heard, in order to be seen. And I document, for years, I've been documenting the Ontario International Airport. They're hovering so low, I'm catching the logo, I can see the colors, and I'm always documenting the entity gang stalking with plane activity that's so loud it's competing with my voice. And there is no making that anything other than the stalking conduct of the airport, where there is no zoning provisions and there is no rationalization and an investigation by the government that's going to be prosecuting, where you're taking off, explain where taking off from Terminal 2 and Terminal 4 results in any plane that's going to be flying above the Ontario 280 North Limit Apartments, because that's what I'm documenting for years. This is what the entity relies on, and it's the absence of the strategy or intent or ever the expectation to define how you get to taking off. By taking off meaning, why are you at such a low elevation? Why are you even heard at that location in the city when you're taking off, presumably from the airport? And if you're not taking off from the airport, what exactly are you doing as an airport to be at that zoning location over the library, over the Starbucks at at E Street and Euclid Avenue, over the Ontario Museum of History and Arts, over the Woodside Senior Apartments, literally flying over my head at 4:50 in the afternoon, where the fake sun is also over the top of my head, giving greater context about the targeting by the airport. But this is the common sense analysis where the government is. I've literally given you the formula for prosecuting gang stalking by airports. And LAX was doing the same thing at Alvarado Gardens, where they're flying around over the hillside from LAX, and the fake sun is over me, where they're crossing path at that hillside. And LAX, you're merely engaging in what is floating around in the sky space over there. From LAX, when you're scrutinizing it, when you get into that, there will be no legitimate explanation for it. It is clearly the entity that's assuming that they're going to be able to fly around anywhere and do anything, and no one's ever going to question it, and that they'll never be, and it actually scrutinizing what exactly from the airport how do you get here at this elevation, where my documentation is going to aid you in what you can hear, the elevation, what you can see when you're taking off from an airport. This is the type of analysis, this is the type of investigation, and that's serving for a prosecution, and it's identifying targeting by the airport, and it's evidence against the city of Ontario, that is the police. That's again the criminal surveillance, and it's being abused and being misused and mistaken for law enforcement, and it's not. And that's exactly why the demons of the Ontario police that are going to federal prison, as surely as I documented the Ontario police gang stalking all last night, C. Torres, L. Martinez, Nathan Morgan, and B. Hook are all going to federal prison because the Ontario Police Department is engaged in what is gang stalking me, and that's what they were doing pursuant to criminal summoning at Woodside Senior Apartments on May 29, 2025. And the city of Ontario is engaging in that criminal pattern of conduct, which is ongoing corroborating evidence against the city of Ontario, that is gang stalking via the Ontario Police Department. It is currently 8:37 a.m. It is Thursday, June 12, 2025. Measure Q is a basis of criminal abuse by the government, that is the city of Ontario, that's gang stalking. And the city of Ontario, that office is engaged in what is federal group stalking and monitoring, while at the same time referencing a measure where they've been presumably given funds, and they're using those funds to engage in gang stalking. I'm capturing them in relevant position. I'm in the specific environment. The city of Ontario is gang stalking me, including through their conversation about homeless services. This is exactly why Paul Leon is being removed from office. Every facet of the city of Ontario is gang stalking. He's been in office gang stalking for over 20 years, and he is still doing so now. And this demon is far too knowledgeable about my vagina in every restroom that I've used in the city of Ontario, which is also why that sex offender is going to be removed from office. Okay, the Ontario Police Department is facilitated, is enabled, is capable of engaging in public corruption, stalking an American citizen, and it being mistaken as law enforcement while Paul Leon remains in office. And that's why he's going as well. It is currently 8:38 a.m. The entity is maintaining aerial surveillance with the people of the state, while the entity is maintaining the ongoing highly illogical and obvious engagement in gang stalking under the guise of what is the Ontario International Airport that provides no basis for maintaining any sort of activity in the environment, where the entity is plainly gang stalking. 8:38 a.m. And this is P.O.C. of the entity that's engaging in what is the pattern of conduct of gang stalking through planes, helicopters, gang stalking via the city of Ontario itself, that is doing so in concert with the demon-possessed, the people of the state who have shown their demon possession, their engagement in the pattern of conduct, which is also evidence against the Ontario Police Department. This is P.O.C. All right, it is currently 9:11 a.m. If you'll recall, Corey Watson, this is a kidnapper, on June 16, 2022. Kidnapping as an entity is what he and the Ontario Police Department committed at the Ovid Family Community Library, by the way, where the entity had the fake son, where you can clearly see the demons who are feigning engaging in law enforcement when they're actually stalking, and they're stalking in the most plain and obvious manner. You see the fake son planted right above the Ovid Family Community Library entrance. It's the same Ovid Family Community Library that I was exiting just days ago after 6 p.m. where the Ontario Police Department, again, is gang stalking me by helicopter. And that is the ability to prosecute with a body of evidence speaking to targeting that is identified in an environment that defies nature. It's also where the Ontario International Airport is providing evidence against the gang stalker, Corey Watson, the Ontario Police Department, while they're flying over the apartment complex where the fake son is present right now at 9:12 a.m., where the people of the state and the government, corrupt businesses like Omnitrans, the city of Ontario, are gang stalking by pacing around me, stalking under a fake sun. These are all cockroaches that are crawling all around me, stalking, and their stalking conduct as a group is proven, while the supernatural object, that fake sun, that light source, is at the Ovid Family Community Library. But that's exposing what Corey Watson, like I stated on video at 9:18 a.m. yesterday, that he's stalking. And he's also stalking as a kidnapper of the Ontario Police Department, who is also engaging in that conduct while I am at the same time, no coincidence, documenting yet another kidnapping that he engaged in as well in 2022, and that the entity engaged in 2025. He knows what he's documented for. He knows what he committed, and he also knows who I am and where I'm at, because the fake sun is that that anchor that remains over the building at Starbucks, where the fake sun that is right now over my head at Ovid Family Community Library at 215 E.C. Street is not on Euclid Avenue, seen outside of the windows of the Starbucks that are facing south, facing Euclid Avenue, where Corey Watson is gang stalking inside of that Starbucks at the same time. This is where the entity is stalking commercial planes. This is where the entity is gang stalking, which you'll see in the images, by the Ontario Police Department through the city municipality workers. The amplified sound of emptying the garbages of the facilities that are surrounding me, that's gang stalking by the city under the fake sun as the elements are satisfied. The gang stalking by the corrupt business Omnitrans, that's engagement in the criminal elements of monitoring, while a corrupt business is engaging in what is the demonic elements of light activity, relative positioning, and audible activity while they are gang stalking. And that is all shown and proven by not only, remember, what LAPD is doing under the fake sun. That's what I used to show you what Corey Watson is doing under the fake sun yesterday. That's over me at Starbucks, and at the same time over me while LAPD is shown to be stalking and targeting me specifically under a fake sun in Los Angeles, which is not going to be seen outside a Starbucks window at 507 North Euclid Avenue. It's not going to be over 215 E.C. Street. And it certainly isn't the natural environment when I'm at 215 E.C. Street walking out at 6 p.m. where the entity that is gang stalking does so under a fake sun that's still here after 6 p.m. and is engaging in what is keeping that fake sun, so that you're aware of what everybody else is doing, which is targeting, stalking, and engineered light in a whole cartoon environment, which is revealing their mental illness. This is what the entity is doing right now while I'm capturing that fake sun. And you'll see that in images that are uploaded to the Google Drive. This is where the Ontario Police Department is engaging in what is criminal surveillance, and they're doing so while they are keeping the evidence about their kidnapping, about their obsession with my vagina, about their stalking me from place to place, about their public corruption, gang stalking with the people of the state who are providing evidence for the disbanding of the Ontario Police, about the gang stalking conduct about the city of Ontario that's providing evidence to support the disbanding of the Ontario Police. They're keeping all of that evidence under surveillance while still stalking me by helicopters, still stalking using the resources of a corrupt police department that's engaging in criminal surveillance in furtherance of murder and kidnapping. That's the significance of McCarthy sounding audible activity while the fake sun is over my head at 215 E.C. Street. And that's also letting you know that McCarthy is a bunch of demons wearing hard hats that are maintaining activity, monitoring me while they're engaging in construction under a fake sun. This is how public corruption where gang stalking is operated. This is the living dead, and everything and anything in that environment is serving monitoring. That's why you have what is that ornament in the sky, by the way, which is not over Woodside Senior Apartments, contrary to what I'm documenting. At 8:49 a.m., the Ontario Police Department is gang stalking me on May 8, 2025, where the fake sun is over my head at that Woodside Senior Apartment complex over Tracy Banks' front door. At 8:49 a.m., I'm here. The entity has a fake sun. It's 9:12 a.m. So pray tell, what is the city of Ontario driving in, creating light activity under? They're monitoring. What is McCarthy creating audible activity and engaging in construction work under? They're monitoring. What is Omnitrans driving under and driving in while they're engaging what is picking up the demon-possessed people of the state? They're monitoring. What are the people of the state pressing their brake lights and stopping at the traffic lights and driving around in the turn circle while they engage in that conduct of stalking with light that moves all across the asphalt and the sidewalks and all across the building? Don't forget about what those demons showed you about themselves. They're gang stalking, and you know that because they're doing it under the fake sun as well. They're monitoring, and this is what the Ontario Police Department is doing, monitoring with the City of Ontario. That's coming right in my path, vehicle 1624445, and that's vehicle number 4226. Stalking in between the 280 North Limit Apartments, where the Ontario International Airport is flying over it, and over the Ontario Senior Center, while they listen to me give a damning recitation of the legal analysis that's going to prosecute the entire entity that's gang stalking in a highly unintelligent and very obvious manner. That's the City of Ontario that's engaged in criminal summoning. That's the City of Ontario that's engaged in bathroom monitoring. That's the City of Ontario that's engaged in federal stalking under Title 18, including right now. That's the City of Ontario that's engaged in what is ongoing domestic terrorism and psychological torture, while the City of Ontario provides what is amplified plane activity for all of that entity to monitor under a fake sun, which Corey Watson is intentionally present under at an entirely distinct location, because what's over at 215 E.C. Street, the Ovid Family Community Library, adjacent to Paul Leon's office at this plaza, is not seen through the window of Starbucks that's facing South Euclid Avenue at 507 North Euclid Avenue, nor is it in Los Angeles. That's the analysis, because what LAPD is gang stalking me under at the same time, if you're at the same time, could not possibly be over my head where Paul Leon is located in relevant position, feet away from me, gang stalking me. All right, that's the prosecution and the removal of Ontario Police, but also federal prison for L. Martinez, C. Torres, B. Hook, and Nathan Morgan, and the entity that is gang stalking with the intent to obstruct justice, because this very system that I've been documenting since 2018, this is what the entity sought to engage in, what is criminally defaming me so that the evidence would be rendered illegitimate, which does not work. But I want to let you know about their motivation behind engaging in criminal defamation, because the demon-possessed know exactly what it is that I'm going to expose about them. And it's their criminal conduct, in addition to the fact that the demon-possessed are real and that they are engaged in criminal conduct against unsuspecting people that are ignorant about the spiritual realm and are ignorant about the ways in which you are spiritually attacked, and you're lied to about yourself, you're lied to about who you are as a person, and what is your fault when the entity is targeting you and engaging in all manner of what is psychologically harming you and terrorizing you. And it's the criminal conduct of a corrupt government as well that has no constitutional interest. It's illegitimate to engage in surveillance. The government doesn't have a legitimate interest. There's a constitution. Regardless of the government's disregard of the constitution, the government is engaged in absolutely impossible level of hypocrisy and criminal conduct and corruption, gross corruption, that every gang stalking mayor you're not staying in office. You're not. So in addition, as surely as Nathan Morgan's going to federal prison and C. Torres is going to federal prison, Paul Leon's getting out. He's not remaining in office. This is intolerable. No gang stalking mayor, nobody that wants to, he can say whatever he wants. You can claim, oh, I didn't know anything about it. That demon can say whatever he wants. When you are in a position of leadership and this criminal system is underway, you're out of office. You're fired. Okay, the entities engaged in this conduct, and the fake sun is over Paul Leon's City of Hall. Excuse me, it's not his City Hall. Over Paul Leon, while the City Hall is in relevant position. Paul Leon is a demon. Paul Leon's a gang stalker. Okay, the City Hall is a facilitating venue. That is, the City Hall in Ontario is a crime scene. That's also why he's out of office. This is why you have a police engaging in what is criminal activity as opposed to law enforcement. He's out of office for multiple reasons, and it is doing the public good. It's for the protection of the American public that he is removed from office, that demons like B. Hook are put in federal prison, because that's exactly what's happening. That's exactly what's going to happen. And at 9:20 a.m., the entity is keeping the fake sun at 215 E.C. Street. And remember, it's here at sunset. Remember what I documented while this entity engaged in kidnapping at this same time of year in 2022, when the fake sun is remaining over all the heads of the kidnappers, including Corey Watson, on June 16, 2022, where these same gang stalkers engaged in what is a malicious assertion, not just a false one, but a malicious one, because they're not accidentally making a false allegation, meaning they didn't get me confused with somebody else that molested a child. They asserted that against me in order to engage in kidnapping, where the Ontario International Airport is gang stalking, like they were on the day that they committed kidnapping as well. Corey Watson's going to federal prison, as surely as the Ontario International Airport provides evidence against him. Targeting me under the fake sun at the Ovid Family Community Library, which is the specific environment that he was in at the Starbucks at 507 North Euclid Avenue yesterday, with the intent to obstruct justice, threatening me, my life, my safety, and my liberty while he's gang stalking at that Starbucks after having committed kidnapping with this entity that is very stupid, providing more evidence against that demon right now while I'm speaking and documenting it. That's plain activity under the fake sun. That is not the natural environment that would be over Starbucks, where Corey Watson would like to claim that he's not a demon, and he didn't conspire to kidnap me with this government that's targeting. But he doesn't have evidence to support that, because the entity that's acting as one lacks any self-control and has no legal strategy and has no response to what are facts, and cannot engage in any sort of reasoning with regard to their satanic behavior and how to respond to the illusions that they require. And now those illusions are being put to the test with regard to the law and with regard to the conduct as an entity. And all of LAPD's criminal conduct is serving to put Corey Watson in federal prison as well, because it's occurring in the specific environment. All right, the entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct with the failed notion that you're engaging in some sort of retaliation, or that I'm going to stop legally analyzing the circumstances as they are while they engage in plain activity under the fake sun. That's not over 507 North Euclid Avenue, where Corey Watson is gang stalking on video under the fake sun at Starbucks, where that fake sun remains at Starbucks after 7 p.m., like I also documented, which is not coexisting with what I'm documenting at the same time you're in Los Angeles, which is not coexisting with ever being over the Ovid Family Community Library, which I already documented before Corey Watson gang stalked me at Starbucks yesterday when he's kidnapping me on June 16, 2022 under the 10:26 a.m. fake sun. And it's clearly directly above my head while these demons engaging in what is criminal surveillance and calling it law enforcement upon making malicious assertions, which is exactly what the same gang stalking terrorist organization committed on May 29, 2025. That's why Corey Watson's going to federal prison. All right, and his criminal defendants that are gang stalking in the same manner committing kidnapping in concert with Arrowhead Regional Medical Center with the intent to obstruct justice, because the demon-possessed are engaged in targeting American citizens in this country. And it is understanding, first of all, yes, it is legal. Yes, it is with regard to, meaning it's illegal, but what I mean with legal, meaning there are legal ramifications. There's a legal context. There's an ability to prosecute, legislate around it. Yes, you have legal rights which you can enforce, but you need to understand that this is satanic. This is Satan's agenda. Satan is a spirit. Satan is using people, and Satan has embarrassed the Ontario Police Department that's being disbanded for being a bunch of demons that are obsessed with my vagina, and all of you need to know about that while they're being disbanded for that illegitimate obsession. All right, for their criminal use of resources and monitoring my vagina and stalking me and then lying on someone like myself who is fully capable of showing that they're lying. All right, and not only are they lying, they're lying because they intend to engage in kidnapping. And because you have that illegitimate interest, which is a proven pattern of conduct, you're going to be not only put in prison for that, you put hands on me, you engage in exercise of authority under the law while you're already gang stalking, you're a domestic terrorist. In other words, you're being removed from law enforcement. You're being disbanded. You're not removing, and neither is Paul Leon staying in office. Both of those are definitely happening. Okay, but you need to understand that this is satanic. This is with regard to the times that we're in right now, with regard to what Satan is doing in the world. And Satan is doing it through a lot of people. Now, obviously, you've got a whole bunch of demons that have lost. That's because the majority is not based on numerosity, like the demon-possessed find confidence, a fake and hollow and deceitful sense of confidence, because all of the demons are being prosecuted. All of them. Including all of the demons of the Ontario Police Department. That entire department is being disbanded. Okay, so it's not a numbers game. The entity is engaging, but that numbers game is what's relevant with regard to prosecuting for terrorism. That numbers game is relevant with regard to prosecution for psychological torture. That's how you're going to use the entity's targeting system against them. But this is spiritual, and this is with regard to who Christ Jesus is. He is God, and Satan has already lost. Satan can't even control himself as he loses, and he's providing evidence against himself, and it's going to be used in a court. So that's where your witchcraft is going to be used against you, because you can't control yourself, and it's what is being encapsulated in tangible evidence to prosecute you, because Satan is not impervious to being prosecuted in a federal tribunal at all. Neither is Satan clever. The fake son that's sitting over Starbucks, that's sitting over me in Los Angeles at Alvarado Gardens, and sitting over 215 EC Street at the same time is a prosecution of the Ontario Police Department. It is currently 9:25 a.m. The entity's keeping the fake sun here until the end of the day. Remember, when I'm coming from the, which was June 6, 2025, when I am at the TAD office and the Ontario International Airport is engaging what is planes taking off of Hope Boulevard. Well, I'm at 1627 Hope Boulevard. Now, at what point, when you see them clearly making a sharp incline into the sky space, like they're taking off, which is closer to the airport, Hope Boulevard, where there would be any planes that you're hearing or even seeing when they're engaging in that level of takeoff, how are you at the 280 North Limit Apartments? How are you even creating any sort of plane activity that's competing with the sound of my voice as I'm talking on my phone? How is it that the sun is going to be over at the Ovid Family Community Library at 215 East C Street, let alone Starbucks, as I went back to on the days after the 6th? I just went back to Starbucks yesterday. The entity is engaging in what is, again, stalking, not leading anything. And that's how you're also seeing what is an unnatural environment. If it's the natural environment, and that's only if you start the documentation from June 6, 2025, we have more, way more than that. Years of consistent documentation of showing what is a scientific phenomenon, the specific environment as I have termed it for you, so that you can see where the demon-possessed are targeting an American citizen. In a whole cartoon environment, everything is fake. The sun is fake. The engineered light that's touching all over it, it's not sunlight. It's all fake, pursuant to what is surveillance. And there's psychopaths that look to the left and the right when they're all stalking together. Their mental illness is put on full display. And the malice of the government is relevant to what is prosecuting those public officials, those corrupt departments, because it is corruption at every single level of government. All right, the entity is engaging in this P.O.C. and the fake sun that's remaining over the TAD office at 1627 West Hope Boulevard is not providing a sun to be over me like I'm documenting right now during the 9 a.m. hour, 9:12 a.m., 9:18, it's 9:20, it's currently 9:27 a.m., but the fake sun is on video at 10:45 where the Ontario International Airport stalking in the path with plane activity. Taking off, which does not coexist with how was a plane hovering over the Ontario City Hall and the Ontario Senior Center and the Ontario Senior Citizen Complex at 280 North Limit Apartments. When you're looking at that location, which is off of nearest Airport Road, okay? The entity is targeting by its unintelligent use of plane activity, which is admitting that your planes have no business over here, and clearly it's under what is an established fake sun, where the targeted individual has clearly outlined that pattern of conduct, and the Ontario International Airport is inextricably linked to that pattern of conduct, where it extends with stalking with planes far beyond just the 280 North Limit Apartments, where the fake sun is remaining at this location until the end of the day. All right, every aspect of that pattern of conduct, which is speaking to an environment where you're recognizing targeting. You're not just prosecuting targeting based on presence in the path, because you could prosecute anybody for gang stalking. Gang stalking is demonic. So if they're in a universe where there is no fake sun, this is Satan's demonic imitation of God's creation. This is a demonic imitation of that. The sun does not hover above roofs. The sun does not sit adjacent to buildings outside of your window. The sun does not cause sunlight on your ceiling. This is Satan's demonic imitation, and this is requiring you to be a total, utter ignoramus, totally oblivious to your environment, and you are not. I have more confidence in you, those of you who are listening, who have eyes to see and ears to hear. Satan has no confidence. Satan is literally relying on you to be an absolute buffoon. Okay, Satan is projecting though, because you clearly see that that's not sunlight, as I'm documenting the pattern of conduct of engineered light, day and night, and that's also not the sun that's remaining idle. This is the environment where you're recognizing criminal surveillance. In a natural environment where the environment is not suspicious, you're just minding your business, walking, talking, driving, but that's not what's going on. And also, logic dictates and requires, where you're establishing a pattern of conduct, it's not going to go from some supernatural environment that's remaining and the behavior that is also supernatural of that entity, and then the next day all of a sudden everything's normal and back to normal. We're just kidding. We're not gang stalking. We're not in the specific environment. That's not happening either. There is no getting out of the pattern of conduct. And not only does the law speak to what is prosecuting upon us, demonstrating that, but logic dictates that. It is unreasonable to suggest that the pattern of conduct is just going to stop. All right. And once you capture that supernatural, it is something that demands that you continue to pay attention to it, because this is where you're learning about what Satan is doing. Okay. It's going to expose demons who are sex offenders, who are mentally ill, psychopaths. They're dangerous psychopaths, and they like to clone themselves as normal, sane human beings, while actually people who are, again, law-abiding citizens, profitable to American society, those are the ones that are being targeted by this demon-possessed population. All right, and they are requiring this false sense of anonymity while strangers are gang stalking, and that's exposing the mentally ill.
They're the demon possessed, and they are obsessively consumed with the demise of the targeted individual. And that's just the reality. The fact that, in other words, yes, the strangers, they hate you, and it's because of the demonic spirit on them. And they're all monitoring. Okay, they have this animosity, and it's because of the spirit of Satan that is using them, because they don't personally know you. And by the way, legally relevant with regard to gang stalking, it's I'll prosecute you whether I know you're, it doesn't matter. I'm going to prosecute you. It's state action, first of all. Second of all, it's group conduct. You don't have to know their name. They're under the fake sun. It's for the convenience of a whole civilization of animals to target you. And the evidence of that environment is going to prosecute the city government, the state government, the federal government, whoever's engaging in it. And the entire state of California is gang stalking, and inevitably includes the federal government as well. All right, it is currently 9:31 a.m. The entity's keeping the fake sun, and this is relevant to what Corey Watson, the Ontario Police Department, are doing at Starbucks yesterday under the 9:18 a.m. fake sun. Don't forget that. And then as I leave the Starbucks, remember, I captured the fake sun. This is after 10 a.m., but then again, the next day, a grand deviation from that. This is what you're looking at a year later in the natural environment. The sun is not even over here. It's in Los Angeles, where LAPD is gang stalking me day and night in helicopters under a fake sun that never leaves Alvarado Gardens. Where at whatever point in the day it's shining over me. It's shining in alignment to me. It's setting in alignment to me. It's rising in alignment to me, which is not over Starbucks at 507 North Euclid Avenue. At the same time, it's not over 215 East C Street, the Ovid Family Community Library. Neither is the sun maintaining ubiquitous presence like the sky over everyone, everywhere, whether you're idle all day long at one location or in constant movement, traveling all over the place. And the sun is maintaining presence in that manner, like I've documented, and everybody's experiencing that. That's not the natural environment. That's not the sun. That's not the behavior of the sun. Okay, so the entity is engaging in a very clear and plain pattern of conduct, and the demon-possessed are very hostile, and you're looking at the psychopathic behaviors of hostile demons, and they are going by the name of the Ontario Police Department. Hence, they're chasing me down and showing their mental illness in doing so. They're chasing me down very much so by going to 7-Eleven in the middle of the night, engaging in that passive-aggressive conduct of stalking and communicating a threat while keeping their back to you. It's exactly what you see the people of the state doing inside of a venue such as Starbucks, and that impossible light is an unlawful threat as well. It's psychological torture. It's an unlawful threat to you, your safety, your well-being, and they're looking to the left and the right like it's not happening, while the entity is gang stalking at that venue by helicopter, and they're all looking to the left and the right, monitoring you like it's not happening. That's the mental illness shared by the Ontario Police Department, gang stalking in the middle of the night by not only engaging in that passive-aggressive show of what is aggression, which is exhibiting mental illness. Mental illness is a disqualification for being in law enforcement. But not only that, they do that right after the same department flies over my head in the engineer light by helicopter, which is a very heavily documented pattern of conduct for years with the same police department. And then those psychopaths that cannot control themselves, all right, they sit around thinking about all the different ways that they would like to destroy me. It's never going to happen. They're going to prison for kidnapping, and they're being disbanded. And they're also going to be embarrassed for abusing literally the phrase of law enforcement, so it would even ever be confused with what these demon-possessed psychopaths are practicing. That's not law enforcement. Not even close. And by the way, these gang-stalking demons, what they're doing is what the Ontario Police Department is doing. It's not law enforcement. That's how very clear and unequivocal I am stating they're not engaged in law enforcement. These demons have been given a whole bunch of toys and a badge and unfortunately weapons in order for Satan to dress up like a cop while they're together playing cops and robbers, and they're all gang stalking together. They're not law enforcement officers. They're not. They're literally not. And so the entity is engaging in this P.O.C., and that specific environment is serving to cause the federal group stalking and monitoring system to implode. The demons are providing evidence against themselves. It's going to be used against the Ontario Police Department, and their demise is inevitable. And federal prison, you are going to federal prison in the same way that I would represent any client in court with regard to being targeted by a government, by a police. I dare you to kidnap my client and avoid federal prison. It's not going to happen. You're going to prison. And they're going to prison for kidnapping me while they're engaged in gang stalking. I'm going to repeat their names again. C. Torres is going to federal prison. So is L. Martinez, Nathan Morgan, and so is B. Hook. They're going to federal prison, and so is Corey Watson, who wanted to show his ashy kneecaps at that Starbucks yesterday under the fake sun. And all you have to do is look at what LAPD is doing at the same time in order to prove that this is somebody that is stalking, and stalking with knowledge about what it is that I'm also doing on the venue of the internet, publishing documentation about being subject to another kidnapping in the same way that he executed at this very venue, where the sun does not rise and set. That's the environment where targeting is underway. And targeting is underway by this gang stalking police department who has far too much evidence against them gang stalking me in helicopters and in vehicles under a fake sun and amongst impossible light activity, showing that they're demons who are stalking together at this very venue as well. This is P.O.C. It's currently 9:35 a.m. This is the entity that engages in that evidence, and I'm the person that the entity targeted because they thought that I was going to be an easy target. And that's, again, a setup by the divine, Christ Jesus himself, because they've done it to a lot of people, all right? But they did it to me in order for me to expose it, not because it's going to be successful. It is currently, again, 9:36 a.m., and this is P.O.C. on June 12, 2025, and this is informing everything that's happening for the rest of the day. The Ovid Family Community Library is a gang stalker, and the Ovid Family Community Library is a facilitating venue, and the Ovid Family Community Library is where I'm subject to ongoing criminal surveillance. Okay? This is P.O.C. All right, you are looking at a group of psychopaths that are engaging in stalking with light together while the demons pace at the C-turn and impossible light swipes through, including children in that pattern of conduct as well. This is exactly what I documented upon my exit of the same venue last night, where driving in the turn circle results in that supernatural occurrence with light touching surfaces and touching your person. This is what the people of the state are doing together while they're gang stalking under the fake sun. It's 9:59 a.m. They're all under the fake sun, awaiting entrance to engage in surveillance inside of the venue, where they're engaging in that demonic pattern of conduct outside together. These are, again, ostensibly strangers sharing that pattern of conduct together, and that's the psychopathic personality disorder of the entity that is engaged in the P.O.C. It is the city of Ontario that's going to be prosecuted for that sex offense, for that ongoing pattern with regard to targeting with light while they're monitoring. And the people of the state, I'm capturing them in vehicles. This is what they're doing inside of Starbucks. So they drive on Euclid Avenue, impossible light inside of the Starbucks. They're driving on this turn circle and impossible light across the Ovid Family Community Library. It's 10 a.m. They're all on surveillance cameras, gang stalking, license 9NVW140. Sex offender in custody of a minor child, also works for Uber, gang stalking as well. Impossible light activity 7MPK011, driving a GMC with a minor child, a Caucasian woman, with a cross hanging from her vehicle while the Ontario International Airport is gang stalking with her, and they're engaging what is repeatedly accosting with impossible light. These sex offenders are going to be prosecuted for domestic terrorism. And they're the sex offenders monitoring my vagina as well. They're under the fake sun that's here after 6 p.m. and Ontario police is crossing path. That's federal prison. Okay, this woman has a young male in her vehicle in the front seat. This female with the blue Lincoln has a female child getting out of the vehicle, license 9NVW140, gang stalking while the impossible light activity occurs in the Ontario International Airport. This is greater context with regard to the demons that are stalking with light. All of the employees inside of Ovid Family Community Library have already committed kidnapping together. This is also how psychopaths engage in their pattern of conduct, which is serving to identify them as the gang stalkers. There is no anonymity. They're not strangers. They're engaging in that P.O.C. as one while they engage in it, further identifying the fact that a whole population, license 8YAH902, and license an aged demon-possessed gang stalker. Okay, liver spots, wrinkles, license 7MBN480, same pattern of conduct. Gang stalking together. Remember the fake sun at 6 p.m. where the Ontario police is gang stalking in the same manner with this population. That's why the entity gang stalking on June 16, 2022 from this venue, they're going to federal prison. It includes Daisy, whoever Daisy is, because I had never met Daisy before on June 16, 2022. And she engaged in what is waging false allegations. The entity has the library locked while they're engaged in what is molesting and terrorizing with impossible light. But the entity is doing so with impossible light activity, and they're going to federal prison for that while they're gang stalking, because this is what they were doing when they made those false allegations on June 16, 2022. They were gang stalking. All right, it is currently 10:02 a.m. This is the evidence that's putting the Ontario police in federal prison. It's disbanding them and putting gang stalkers like those working at Ovid Family Community Library in federal prison, because they're gang stalking upon making false allegations, and they're gang stalking with the population that enters into the venue, that drives outside of the venue, that is engaging in what is monitoring by being in the venue under the fake sun that's present at 10:02 a.m. and could not possibly be at what is Starbucks at 507 North Euclid Avenue, while I'm also showing you what's impossible. That light streams across on the outside of a building when you're driving by it. But that pattern of conduct is what is connecting the entity that is indeed engaged in the pattern of conduct. That inability to control themselves is how you're able to prosecute them and identify them. This is the terrorists that fill this country. They are the living dead that engage in this conduct, and it's also satanic, and it is in furtherance of murder and kidnapping. And that's exactly why you're going to remove those that are engaging in this from the positions that they hold. And it's also going to change the operation of law when you're engaging in targeting and then abusing laws to engage in what is oppressing American citizens. It is currently 10:03 a.m. The city of Ontario is going to be prosecuted for that. This is what they were doing last night, molesting me with impossible light while the demon-possessed engaging in the exact same thing, crossing path at the C-turn circle, and I'm being molested with impossible light while I'm sitting on the side of the library. And this is what they're doing while I'm standing at the entrance during the day under the fake sun. And they're driving by at the same C Street turn circle and impossible light swiping across while all the demons are monitoring as well. This is the P.O.C. It's currently 10:03 a.m. at Ovid Family Community Library. All right, 5LDK476 and 9KZG066. License EB79V11, that's paper. You hear that ignition, that's a gang stalker, stalking with activity as I move. That's 8K34038. And VSNDHU. They're all engaged in surveillance at the facilitating venue of 7-Eleven, where you already know that the Ontario Police Department is gang stalking in this jurisdiction. And the Ontario International Airport is providing evidence against them while they fly over where there's no planes taking off. So the Ontario International Airport is stalking by flying in alignment to me while I'm walking west on G Street while these demons are in the parking lot waiting for me to arrive like stalkers. This is actual mental illness. License DD89R31 paper. And the establishment itself is also gang stalking. It's 9:22 p.m. where a bunch of strangers are stalking me together collectively. This is exposing actual mental illness while they're engaged in gang stalking. And it's government action, P.O.C. It is 9:33 p.m. The entity that's monitoring evidence, the entity that is, again, very delusional and psychopathic, engaging in ongoing conduct that is only documented for its own demise, but that is speaking to the mental illness and the threat to the public safety that the entity that is gang stalking presents. And it is Ontario, and it includes the Ontario Police Department, who was specifically documented for gang stalking with the amplified audible activity of deliberately using something reminiscent of the sound of a gunshot. And so at 9:33 p.m., an amplified pop sound, it's to monitor me, but it's also, when I document something, anything that I state, the demons that are stalking, they also mimic what it is that I just said. They're literally the living dead. If I say turn over, they start turning over, so. It's both pathetic, but it's creepy while a bunch of dead people are stalking, and they're all stalking together, and they also engage in what it is that I expose about them. They'll do it again and again and again and again and again, and all I documented, and it's going to haunt them in court, but that's the entity that is to be removed from law enforcement. Don't forget about that. That sick mind, that behavior, that decision-making skill set or lack thereof. That's what's going to be removed from law enforcement. But it's 9:34 p.m. where the entity is threatening with amplified noise of sound and like a loud pop, like a loud bang. It could be somebody hitting the side of a car with a hammer. It's amplified. It's reminiscent of what it is that a gunshot would sound like. But I know that the entity is engaging in what is repeating what I documented yesterday. That's the pattern of conduct. And under all circumstances is threatening. The people are monitoring. They're all in engineer light. This isn't traffic. This is about stalking me. It's P.O.C. at the Tabor Professional Building in engineer light. It is 9:35 p.m. Oh, 9:35 p.m. was the current time right now? Let me get that. Yeah, 9:35 p.m. repeating the same audible activity creation. P.O.C. Okay, at 9:33 p.m., the people of the state are gang stalking with the Ontario International Airport again. That is flying toward what is Euclid Avenue. And I'm at the Tabor Professional Center, the Tabor Professional Building, where you saw the Ontario Police gang stalking by helicopter at 1 o'clock in the morning, flying in a circle over me, and the Ontario Police pacing along Euclid Avenue like the people of the state are right now. It's not traffic. They're in engineer light, so you're looking at the entity in its proper context. These are stalkers that are pacing all around me, going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. They're gang stalking. And that's what you saw the Ontario Police doing. And the City of Ontario has what is at 9:33 p.m. where I attempted to capture video I did not get that video. The people of the state are pacing on the roads and the highways. The magnified size of the shadows of their vehicles, which I've documented before in possible light activity, are arriving. By arriving, I mean they're moving across the wall where I'm capturing my upright shadow, and they are at a great distance away. It's the light activity that you saw last night after the Ontario police were gang stalking at 7-Eleven at 1:18 a.m. today, and you saw my shadow at the opposite end of that building. That's what the demon-possessed are doing using their vehicles. Their vehicles were moving across this wall while they were at a great distance. They hadn't even approached it while they were driving in traffic, which was them pacing. They were doing this immediately following the amplified audible activity creation, and then the demons engage in pacing and engineer light. The loud noise, and then the demons engage in pacing and engineer light. The loud noise and the demons engage in pacing and engineer light all around me. And this is what Ontario International Airport is doing. And what I observed is the plane that is seen would be in a location similar to what is Euclid Avenue from the TABOR Professional Building, where I'm at on G Street. And that is a clear indication of what is literally a stalker in a plane, is what I observed. Flying in a very, very low elevation, lower than the trees, and then rising up in elevation. And that would be presupposing that you're taking off from the ground from an elevation lower than the trees that are on the street right here, in order for that plane to then rise up as though it's mimicking some sort of takeoff. There's no takeoff over here on Euclid Avenue. There's no takeoff on, not even on C Street, on D Street, E Street, certainly not anywhere in alignment to G Street. The entities engaging in what is this conduct with the people of the state, who are at the same time pacing in this engineer light where the shadows of their vehicles are moving across the wall of the TABOR Professional Building. And it is the city of Ontario that is gang stalking with the people of the state again. So I want to be clear that demonic conduct is what is the criminal activity, the domestic terrorism of the government. And it is fully documented on for years. So I'm giving a narration of what the entity just committed at 9:33 p.m. and attempting to record it, but I wasn't able to record that video, so I want to give a real-time narration of it. And the people of the state that you hear this traffic, this is criminal conduct. The entity that's gang stalking is found to be engaging in open and obvious and readily identifiable criminal conduct. Their license plate, their addresses, their identities. They're gang stalking at work, you know exactly who they are. They're gang stalking at their homes, you know exactly who they are. They're gang stalking when they're out in public, engaging in any sort of function, you know exactly who they are. And you're able to even identify who they are if that's not readily available or known. The entity's engaging in what is the pattern of conduct in the city, which is exposing that government in that city. There's no anonymity with regard to gang stalking. The entities engage in this pattern of conduct, and it is under no circumstances anonymous or mysterious whatsoever. And when you are exposed for engaging in this conduct, that prosecution with regard to identity, and that's the easy part. It's the easy part. It's currently 9:45 p.m. where the entity is gang stalking at the TABOR Professional Building with the people of the state, and doing so with the city of Ontario that's engaging in a very there's no other way to put it. It's silly. It's stupid. It's as stupid as the fake sun sitting over Woodside Senior Apartments for 11 hours, and I documented it on video. So the entity is engaging in that conduct with the people whose shadows of their cars that are about, they're at the plaza, haven't approached yet, and the shadow of their vehicles are moving across the wall. That's very demonic. It's speaking to demons. This isn't traffic. These are demons. And these demons are stalkers. It's currently 9:46 p.m. This is P.O.C. All right, you got a lot of mentally unstable people stalking around with light. 6RRK329, 5NQM928. This is where the Ontario International Airport is dipping low beneath the trees and then rising in elevation like there's an airport over here to be taking off from. It lets you know that 8BIN325 is in relevant position gang stalking. License 7GDE612, 9RWZ356, 7DSF632. Stalking in the path with regard to being down the street, just aiming light, ominous stalking in the dark, creating light activity. This is what the government is doing. The gang stalking police relying on terrorists like 8XSS629 engaged in federal stalking and terrorism with the airport that's using commercial planes in order to stalk me where I'm at on G Street, 7WPA629. And a sex offender touching me with light without my consent. And I've got two super tall, like 16 feet shadows in front of me. That's a sex offender because those aren't her headlights. 7GJV821. She's a demon, and she's a mentally ill psychopath stalking another person that she doesn't even know. Not that that makes it less stalkerish, but it's even worse because this is a demon, and her desire to stalk me, which is evident in the specific environment with the method of light in conformity to the pattern of conduct, is because she's a demon. She's gang stalking. License 8LNR700, that's the outward demonstration of demon possession, and it is entirely demonic. Got a black SUV. Is this Ontario PD? Molesting with light, 1644172. Stalking with light. Molesting with light, yeah, 1644172, all black uniform, all black vehicle, California exempt, while the people of the state are gang stalking with the city of Ontario. That's the police department that's going to be disbanded. Having a neighboring law enforcement agency with no logo on their vehicle, having somebody with no police department identified. Those are the cowards that want to come and molest with light, but they don't want to be identified. That's what just drove by right now, and it's attributed to the Ontario Police, who's going to be disbanded. So whatever hollow victory that you are engaging in or thinking that you're achieving while I'm documenting the people of the state, gang stalking with the Ontario Police, and demons that are gang stalking as the Ontario International Airport, they're gang stalking with the Ontario Police, and demons that are driving around with California exempt plates, turning on their lights to molest me as hostile demons while they listen to every single detail about what I document about their demon possession and about their gang stalking tactics, which is revealing their severe mental illness that they hate to hear about. It's documentation of gang stalking with the Ontario Police, 6H57151. It's going against the Ontario Police Department. So, well, again, a psychopath is not inclined to recognize that. They're more focused on me. And that's also why the entity is going to be prosecuted and quite seamlessly when you're looking at understanding the P.O.C. 8 P.O.K. 594, gang stalking with the demon that's molesting me as a law enforcement that doesn't want any logo shown, doesn't want to be identified, is very much fearful, but wants to still come around and be a demon and molest my body with light. That's a psychopath. That's a demon. 8 PFH 363. And legally, it's a stalker. EB99S56, a paper plate on a white Mercedes. Stalking with the Ontario International Airport, stalking with the corrupt law enforcement in Ontario, gang stalking with this fake church, all these demons over here, stalking with light, 8WXY858. They're engaging in what is stalking with light activity. These are demons that are maintaining some sort of church service, while all manner of criminal conduct and satanic behavior is underway. Satanic. All right, P.O.C.? All right, the demon possessed again. The demon possessed that gang up in many numbers are cowards. Okay, so like I said, they run and flee and hide and lie and try to cover up, and it's pathetic. This is what they're doing with regard to trying to cover up the evidence that's on the video of the internet while engaging in the conduct as though they're fearless. But that's not suggesting that you're fearless. It's suggesting that you're foolish, not fearless. 7UOD823, I believe. And gang stalking, let me get this address while the Ontario International Airport flies over their house. Their license plate is driving a Civic with her phone in her hand, 8ESU554. And the address where the Ontario International Airport is sounding plane activity as though that's a response, a rebuttal to not being fearful. It's called foolish. It's very foolish. The government has no appropriate basis to be hovering in a plane as though it's taking off over the venue where the people of the state are gang stalking, sitting around in the parking lots with their lights on, being demons, monitoring on their phones. All right, the address over here is, this is at, let me see. This is the location where the Ontario International Airport is repeatedly soaring as though they're taking off right here. This is near 507 North Euclid Avenue, the Starbucks parking lot. I'm right over here in this area where the entity is engaging what is stalking with commercial planes, hovering in low elevation and taking off right about where I'm standing here. And I was at a distance at the TABOR Professional Center, the TABOR Professional Building rather, and the entity is engaging in that P.O.C. All right, it's currently 10:02 p.m. I want to make sure I get this 50087U3, and the entity that is gang stalking at what is, this street is G Street, G Street and I want to say Laurel, where the entity is hovering in elevation and rising right here where the people of the state are engaged in what is waiting for me to arrive. By waiting, meaning in a vehicle, typically maintaining some method of light, sitting in the vehicle in the middle of the night like they were doing in the gym parking lot, where the Ontario police then engaged in ominous stalking, driving in slow motion, and while I'm getting their license plates, drives in a circle in that parking lot and engineered light gang stalking while listening to me document. That's what these demons are doing while they're gang stalking where they live. Okay, they're in their driveways in the middle of the night, stalking where they live, which is a facilitating venue, not a private residence, no constitutional protection, fully exposed to being gang stalked, especially while the government flies over your home to monitor me, where you're engaging in what is facilitating activity by not coincidentally, but intentionally and knowingly facilitating that pattern of conduct in engineered light, where you are stalking in the path in your driveway with your vehicle lights on, and the people of the state are also doing the same. This is the entity that's engaged in that P.O.C. It's currently 10:04 p.m. at the intersection of Laurel and G Street. This is where the entity is taking off, and by taking off I put that in air quotes. The trees on the ground flying lower than the trees and then rising up in elevation, so at a distance it looked like, oh, the plane is taking off over here at Laurel and G Street, where there's no terminals, there's no takeoff. I'm standing here at the street. This demon is stalking in the driveway. There's no airport over here. However, they're engaged in what is knowledge, the concerted conduct of the airport, the concerted conduct of the people of the state that are driving around, sitting in their vehicles. These are demons. That's how they have that demonic synchronicity, all right? That coordination with regard to presence, all right? This is, again, an operation of a communication device. DF08G39, gang stalking with the Ontario International Airport. Laurel and G Street. Laurel and G Street. So I want to get the, if I can get a address, because this is where I'm documenting the female that has her communication device on. The Ontario International Airport takes off. The demons are molesting with impulsible light. And the Ontario International Airport amplifies plane activity the moment that I'm speaking to the fact that they are cowards. They are. That's why they do things like try to render my podcast that's published as private, which is federal stalking. And they do that after I've already published it because they don't want you to hear about what I'm documenting, what they're doing. That you're fearful. That's why you do that. And it's also because you're a criminal and you're engaged in surveillance and you know that you're being documented. Like this demon does, license 7GJG456. This looks like 123 West G Street, 8YXA460. This is 123 West G Street, where the entity, this is a Richardson Peterson funeral home, where there were a lot of Hispanic Latinos congregated inside of this building, which is relevant positioning and activity creation while I'm walking by, regardless of whether they're a bunch of demons having some sort of meeting about immigration, or whether they're over there celebrating El Dia de Muerte, the Day of the Dead, someone that they're mourning, but they're gang stalking at the same time, so they're not too focused on whatever's happening inside of that funeral home. And at 123 West G Street, it's also evident because the Ontario International Airport is hovering over it, gang stalking me while I'm on G Street, and amplifying plane activity over the Richardson Peterson funeral home at 123 West G Street, where the people of the state are lording in the path on that property, stalking with light activity in operation of communication devices, molesting my person with light. This is what they're doing at that venue, and it's currently 10:07 p.m. This is what the entity is doing with regard to amplifying plane activity. Understand that that's a threat. Criminal monitoring is underway. So everything that you say is audible activity. Everything that is created is serving to monitor. Monitoring is a furtherance of murder and kidnapping. So while the demon possessed engage in what is molesting me via law enforcement, that is a coward covering up the logo, driving in the dark, knowing that I'm documenting the department and the license plates and describing the race and the gender, driving around in the dark, and engaging in what is the same obsession, because that's what they want to do. These demons are psychos, and they really want to jump up and down in front of me with all manner of light and touch all over their demons. And it's spiritually significant what the demon possessed are doing. It's accomplishing monitoring. They're doing this by stalking together as a group, and the coward engages in that, and that's the entity that is communicating a threat as well. That is a threat while you're monitoring me. So while you're amplifying plane activity at the moment that I'm describing that terrorism underway by the city of Ontario, that's documented criminal conduct on the record, serving to demonstrate impunity and malice, where the entity lacks any ability to legally analyze its own criminal conduct, which is going to serve for a prosecution, where they're thinking about, oh, she said that we're fearful. We're not fearful. We're going to amplify plane activity. That's a fool. That's a fool. Like I said, the entity is engaging in the same thing with impossible light activity that flies in the air of Starbucks. How many Starbucks cafes have I documented that in? That is removing any question regarding whether there is a pattern of conduct that includes this behavior with this light and the people of the state that are exhibiting mental illness, not demonstrating innocence when that ongoing supernatural is happening in their presence. The entity is engaging in what is always proving itself to be the gang stalkers that it cannot ever possibly or reasonably deny that they are. Their own behavior has demonstrated it. And not only that, the entity is engaging in that with the entity that is engaged in what is obstruction of justice. And so hovering over the Richardson Peterson Funeral Home is evidence that's putting the people of the state in a situation, a circumstance with regard to an inevitable prosecution. And with regard to the entity, this multiple gatherings of Latinos, Hispanics, and under the guise of being in a flurry about deportation, these demons are out here gang stalking while they're hanging up flags for Mexico, while they're talking about, they're concerned about an issue, but they're gang stalking at the same time, engaging, by the way, in what is highly un-American. So with regard to the issue of deportation, all gang stalking immigrants shall be deported. I stated that before President Trump introduced some sort of immigration policy. In Ontario, it's going to do the public well. These raging psychopaths sitting around stalking in the dark, engaging in what is hatred for American citizens, engaging in what is behavior that is entirely un-American and highly criminal, and doing so with a level of impunity and malice that is very disturbing. And they're the same ones that would like to claim that they have a right to be in this country, and no, you don't. No, you don't at all. And they're demonstrating the fact that they actually hate this country, and so does the government that they're gang stalking with. That's the national security threat. Gang stalking with the immigrants that are out here that have been given a privilege to be here, and that privilege doesn't include domestic terrorism of American citizens, who, by the way, I was born here. I was born here, and my ancestors were born here, regardless of the fact that they're demons. I wasn't granted a privilege to be in someone else's country where I'm out there terrorizing those citizens, those native-born citizens. These gang stalking immigrants, they belong out of this country. They don't belong here. And the entity is engaged in a pattern of conduct with a corrupt government. And a lot of that sense of entitlement, that delusional sense of entitlement, is because of gang stalking police departments, gang stalking mayors, gang stalking governors who are engaged in what is incentivizing corruption because it serves their purposes. So I want to go ahead and get into that because they're engaged in what is holding up their flags for Mexico and being anti-immigration, but they're gang stalking at the same time. They're doing it while impossible light activity is flying all over the place. I'm documenting people that can't even speak my language in my country, and they're engaged in what is seeking to try to intimidate me where I live, where I belong. And I am speaking in such terms because you're no longer an American citizen. We are not the same with regard to your engaging in what is un-American, domestic terrorism and psychological torture, and further to try to murder and kidnap somebody. And then at the same time, you want to be recognized for having some constitutional right to be here. No, you do not. Newsflash. No, you don't. No, you don't, and I fully support deporting every gang-stalking immigrant in the city of Ontario, but throughout the state of California. I'm sitting here witnessing the fact that they actually hate this country, and they need to get out of here. It's a national security threat. All right, the city of Ontario is gang-stalking with all of them. All right, it is currently 10:11 p.m. This is P.O.C. It is, the entity is following a plane activity now that I'm walking north on Euclid Avenue. All right, no longer hovering over Laurel and G Street, flying in a direction more north as I walk north, and hovering nowhere near Laurel and G Street, migrating as I migrate where the engineer light follows. It's the same thing under the fake sun during the day. Demons that are gang stalking the city of Ontario. Demons that are providing evidence against the Ontario Police Department that engaged in kidnapping while they are gang stalking as well in the city of Ontario. This is P.O.C. It is currently 10:12 p.m. The entity's demonstration of impunity and malice is directly relevant to the impunity and malice of the Ontario Police Department. They are equally in disregard of the constitutional rights of an American citizen, equally acting with malice, equally psychopathic, want to be right in my face and molest me all over the place with impossible light activity, engineer light, because they're demons. That's what the Ontario Police Department really wants to do. With regard to this satanic conduct, this satanic monitoring behavior, which they're doing, you're doing it while you're stalking. You're following me around everywhere, and you want to touch me with your light. They're mentally ill, all right? And they have this impulse to want to harm. All right, those are the demon possessed that are gang stalking with the entity that can't control itself, that keeps providing evidence against itself and everybody else that's gang stalking. The entire city of Ontario is gang stalking, including the immigrant population. All right, and by doing so, they're demonstrating that they don't want to be here, whether they realize that or not, and also that President Trump is right in having them deported out of this country. It is currently 10:13 p.m. where the entity's been gang stalking all day long, where no genuine interest in maintaining citizenship in this country is the priority of anybody in Ontario, California, because they're all engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. It is the quintessence of the need to be removed from this country. It's a demonstration of your unworthiness to be in this country, period. All right, this is P.O.C. Impulsive light activity while a demon whose headlights are not aimed toward the wall. So you'll see impulsive light being aimed while a demon is at the Starbucks drive-through. That's headlights that are reaching extensively far while this demon 9AUZ749 drives through it, crosses path, and I have multiple shadows while a sex offender conveniently engages in what is domestic terrorism and psychological torture by buying a drink at the Starbucks at 507 North Euclid Avenue, doing so in impulsive light. That's also what they do during the day, where the fake sun sits over the building for over 10 hours. This is the entity that's gang stalking, and so is LabCorp. They're stalking in the path. I took a picture. You'll see them in the alley with their headlights on. As I start taking pictures, they turn those headlights off, which is also light activity. This is a Caucasian male, license 9CFU863, gang stalking, getting inventory off of the empty building, whatever they're doing at an engineer light while I have perpendicular shadows. This is public corruption exposed, any and everything while gang stalking is underway. Don't forget about what the Ontario International Airport just engaged in, which is incriminating you. And it doesn't matter what you have in your hands or what logo you're bearing. The city of Ontario is gang stalking with you and through you. And this is the short-sighted demons who are very ill-equipped for a prosecution. It is 10:16 p.m. LabCorp is gang stalking with Starbucks at what is Euclid Avenue and E Street at 10:16 p.m. in impossible light activity. And this is the concerted conduct, the demonic synchronicity of the demons who are tethered together by condition, demonic activity. All right, they don't have a meeting and she's coming and so we're going to get this and no. They're demons and they're acting in sync because of that condition. It's Satan that's operating over all of them together, and it's criminal conduct because the government, the public entity, is acting through all of them together. It's 10:17 p.m. That's license plate again, 9CFU863, P.O.C. Ontario PD gang stalking the entire time that I'm documenting the Ontario International Airport, hovering over this intersection, pacing with the people who are stalking with impossible light activity. Now, the Ontario Police Department is gang stalking perceptively with this demon stalking with light by helicopter. All right, and doing so, impossible light back here while a demon approaches over here. Impossible light. That's a demon. The Ontario International Airport is gang stalking as well. The entity is engaging in the elements of monitoring. The entire city is engaged in the pattern of conduct while I'm in Ontario. That's why when I'm in Arcadia, California, the entity is gang stalking the entire city of Arcadia. No matter what street I go to, no matter what dead end I park in, the entity is maintaining those elements of monitoring. And so the entity to engage in it by the Ontario Police directly is the Ontario Police Department engaging in the elements of monitoring as I'm documenting it, which is very foolish of them because they're going to be disbanded. They were gang stalking, engaging in the elements of monitoring on video on May 29, 2025 inside of Tracy Banks' apartment. There's the fake moon. And they deviated. They were back here, so they flew out while I was speaking right now, and now they're flying over. That's the fake moon that they're in front of. And here's one shadow. Here's another shadow. There's another shadow. They're gang stalking. This is P.O.C. It is currently, and that's crossing paths with the people. 11:24, that's demonic pacing. Flying in this direction, driving in this direction in the engineer light. It's demonic. The entity is engaging in what is exhibiting impunity. The Ontario International Airport and the people of the state gang stalking together, crossing path in that specific environment. That's impossible light activity while a demon crosses path. Their headlights aren't reaching over here. Driving isn't causing any flashing of light on the wall. That the Ontario Police Department is exhibiting their demon possession to you while they're openly engaging in what is gang stalking. Stalking, criminal stalking, using the resources of a police department. And their stalking consists of what is group conduct, placement in the path while they're creating any method of any audible activity that you can hear, and they're doing it in an environment where the light is obviously peculiar, such as my one arm having 3 shadows, such as driving at a distance away from the wall and a flashing of light activity occurs over here. These are demons that are pacing, driving in this direction on the street and flying in this direction over me. In that environment, you're always looking at the sky space where the entity is maintaining ornaments in the sky that's supposed to be disguised as the sun, not the natural environment, especially when I document it and I show you that it's still there, like you saw today over the Ovid Family Community Library at 9 in the morning, and I walked out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's still over the Ovid Family Community Library if you paid attention to the documentation today. This is where the entity is gang stalking by helicopter. And this is the Ontario Police Department that has no expectation of surviving public exposure and a prosecution. And federal prison is what's required for Nathan Morgan, B. Hook, L. Martinez, and what is C. Torres, who are gang stalking, engaging in the elements of monitoring inside of Tracy Banks' apartment, which is the specific environment, literally her apartment, the entity maintaining all the elements inside and in concert with the people of the state that you see maintaining the elements of monitoring outside. That's what they're doing at Woodside Senior Apartments, like I documented. And the entity is engaged in gang stalking at Woodside and doing so by committing a kidnapping while they're gang stalking. So that's the entity that is pacing around in helicopter, and this is pacing on the ground all around me, and this is psychopathic behavior. They're stalking as a demon-possessed community. Stalking with light, stalking with noise, stalking as I go from place to place, and literally stalking with an environment that defies nature. And this is the unprecedented conduct of a police department openly exhibiting its mental illness and openly exhibiting its criminal engagement in conduct that is absurdly hypocritical with regard to wanting to be mistaken for law enforcement, which Mike Lorenz and the Ontario Police Department are not. It is currently, when you're looking at coming back around, 11:27 p.m. Right over here where I'm at, flying in circles over me last night at 1 o'clock in the morning, where the entity is engaged in what is audible activity of the sound of gunshots. The entity is engaged in the ongoing ritualistic conduct, summoning demonic spirits. They pray to Satan, and then they engage in what is flying in circles around me, following me around from place to place. They're doing so while their return to sender is going to consist of time in federal prison. The entity is engaging in the P.O.C. and the mental illness, the criminal conduct, the public corruption is what is at issue for the city of Ontario. Incentivizing what is criminal conduct, that's unlawful behavior, and you're recognizing how you were able to see and witness what is criminal surveillance. This is monitoring on communication devices and in an environment where the police department, where the government's maintaining unlawful surveillance, keeping American citizens under surveillance. And this is openly demonstrating mental illness. This is pacing. All right. So when I started taping, flying over on this side of my person while I was sitting over here, and then you're seeing the demon in the helicopter flying in this manner and pacing around in circles and still pacing. This is called stalking in the path. The flashing of the light of the helicopter is light activity as well. And the people of the state are stalking in the path. You can see on the ground, that's near 717 North Vine Avenue, who are gang stalking with the Ontario Police Department and also living in relevant position. So is 7-Eleven. So is the Ontario International Airport right now. It's just the Ontario Police Department is engaging in what is the perceptible means of the elements of monitoring, amplified helicopter activity, pacing in an aircraft at a low elevation, doing so, which is exactly what the Ontario International Airport was doing. They're sharing engagement in that P.O.C. The Ontario Police Department doesn't cease to be engaged in gang stalking when the Ontario International Airport is exhibiting what the Ontario Police Department is engaged in, and they do it themselves as well. This is that's the entity that is stalking in the path and is engaged in ceaseless stalking. This is the entity that has no authority under the law either. They are engaged in what is stalking, and then upon criminal monitoring, criminal surveillance, exercising authority under the law that they do not have. And that's also relevant to the kidnapping that was underway on May 29, 2025, which is why the Ontario Police Department, those 4 officers are going to federal prison. The entity is exhibiting the details of their criminal conduct pursuant to precipitating in a kidnapping, and it's pursuant to what is criminal surveillance that they've been documented engaging in since 2018. Okay, it is currently 11:29 p.m. This is the entity that is indeed gang stalking. These are all the group conduct of the shadows around me, while the entity is maintaining this light activity and doing so while I am documenting it and exposing to the world what criminal surveillance looks like. Criminal surveillance is underway by the demon-possessed, and the Ontario Police Department is a demon-infected agency, which I have been exposing. I've been stating that, and I've already proven it a long time. There are plenty that are going to federal prison for it. I've documented their kidnappings. I've named them and documented the entire department, including the fake son over that Ontario Police Department. The entity is going to be disbanded and going to federal prison for kidnapping. And this impunity is relevant to that federal prison term. All right, the entity is engaged in what is stalking me all night. So you're not provided any authority under the law. And this is documentation of the Ontario Police Department's stalking myself. This is P.O.C. It's 11:30 p.m. All right, 11:31 p.m. After ceasing to capture video, the entity remember, amplified audible activity is demonic. So it's supernatural. It's as supernatural as light flying through the air when a vehicle is driving by. So this is what, again, the Ontario Police Department exhibiting their demon possession, their engagement in witchcraft, their engagement in summoning demonic spirits, which inspire their psychopathic behavior pattern, which is also criminal. So the moment that I stopped recording the video that you just listened to, with simultaneity, amplified helicopter activity resumes. So that is, while I'm speaking and capturing the video, that is the intentional turning down, if you will, of the sound of the helicopter activity. While they are still in the sky space, you could still see it. The moment that I stop recording, however, is when that amplified helicopter activity resumes. The Ontario Police Department is still pacing, and so are the people of the state. This is documentation regarding what is the Ontario Police Department's ongoing criminal conspiracy to commit murder and kidnapping while they are gang stalking to date in concert with the people of the state. And that criminal conspiracy by the Ontario Police Department remains underway while the people of the state engage in the gang stalking system, the elements of monitoring in concert with the government. And this is ongoing diligent documentation for that, pursuant to that. And the entity is subject to federal prison. Every decision that the Ontario Police Department continues to make is going to be dealt with regard to a department-wide prosecution, but also what is federal prison for those engaging in kidnapping. And that includes the kidnapping on May 29, 2025. That includes the gang stalking that I'm documenting by the demon-possessed Ontario Police Department officers whose license plates I document, the vehicle numbers, the encounter with regard to a threat to engage in kidnapping at the museum when you're stalking me day and night. That's a threat to engage in kidnapping. That's a basis of federal prison. The entity is bearing weapons, engaged in gang stalking, which is a conspiracy to commit murder in a manner where the police can get away with it, where they're controlling the narrative. Engaging in a pattern of kidnapping is that which is done in furtherance of that as well. This is in concert with Tracy Banks, demons like Jason Isaac Fields, Eric Corey Spencer, those who are, again, whose name I know, who are fully engaged in this pattern of conduct with the intent to take my life and steal property that belongs to me and defame my character in doing so as well. The Ontario Police Department's criminal engagement in that P.O.C. and their ongoing criminal conduct that I'm documenting, which is stalking as a police department. They don't have authority under the Constitution to engage in what is feigning authority under the, as a law enforcement agency, because that's what they're doing. They're engaging in what is wearing badges and calling themselves a police department when they're engaged in criminal surveillance. It's criminal activity. So the entity is engaging in that, and all of the decisions that the entity continuously makes, which I'm documenting on video and in podcast, is going to be used against that department. And it's not new. I've been documenting the entity since 2018. So federal prison for L. Martinez, C. Torres, Nathan Morgan, and B. Hook is nothing other than one of the latest developments with regard to those who are going to federal prison for kidnapping me, for engaging what is stalking as a police department and targeting me with the people of the state. However, this documentation precedes what is 2025, where Jason Isaac Fields and Tracy Banks and the people of the state at Woodside Senior Apartments are acting together with regard to targeting me and with regard to accomplishing a kidnapping by targeting with the state of California. All right, exercising authority under the law that doesn't even apply, and law that they don't have any authority under. When you are treating the targeting entity based on reality, not based on the malice that they exhibit when they're engaged in public corruption. Okay, that's the government assuming a position of legitimacy when it's entirely illegitimate. The Ontario Police Department literally engaged in flying on video again tonight over what is a fake moon. So you are in Arkansas and whatever state that you're in, you're not looking at the same moon that is over me, again, as I'm documenting on an ongoing basis. And while I'm staying within a 1.5 mile radius, I'm documenting the fake sun that's remaining over me in Ontario for the duration of the day. You are not looking at the same sun where these demons are engaged in open stalking and openly exposed as stalking, and demon-possessed stalkers at that. The police department is going to suffer what is a disbanding for kidnapping an American citizen, which shall be the prosecution, the inevitable demise of any police department taking the liberty of American citizens whom they're conspiring to murder, because that's why police departments, and that's what reasonably results from police officers, police departments gang stalking American citizens. It's domestic terrorism. It is psychological torture. All right, it is a public corruption, and it's a threat to the life of an American citizen, an intolerable level of a threat, and it must be met with federal prison. And that's exactly what those officers on May 29th committed on video. They engaged in what is a wealth of evidence that preceded the kidnapping, that the kidnapping itself, and also what I continue to document, the criminal conduct that they were engaged in the entire time. Federal group stalking and monitoring is executed through the malicious pattern of conduct of the entity calling the police, which is the malice of engaging in the same malice of monitoring, typically using communication devices where the psychopaths are together acting as one reporting to the other about what's happening and making up information with regard to me about what's happening. And they're psychopaths together because they're monitoring together. They're demons that even know with regard to what's going on with my toes inside of my shoes, let alone reporting to one another about what's happening. Those are psychopaths. Those are very malicious psychopaths that are engaging in that pattern of conduct as one, and that's also why you're unfit to be in law enforcement. But nonetheless, I want to document the moment that I stopped recording video, the helicopter amplified immediately resumes, and that is again the demonic pattern of conduct with regard to the supernatural features of the gang stalking. These are the demon possessed. So they're currently pacing in the sky space by plane and helicopter, and the amplified audible activity is that which is not even occurring from the actual object you see in the sky, such as the plane and the helicopter. The entity is engaging in what is satanic and wants to keep the ignorant onlooker I would say in the dark about what you're actually observing. What your eyes see and what your ears hear are not necessarily coming from the same source is what I mean. And that's understanding. And also you're going to prosecute based on those illusions. It's relevant to domestic terrorism. It's relevant to what is psychological torture. It's relevant to what is stalking as an entity that is inherently harmful to an American citizen. And the government has no legitimate interest in doing that and conducting such experiments on the lives of American citizens. And they have an appetite for it because they're the demon possessed. But like I said, the amplification is that which is also conducted in the inverse, which is turning that volume down and turning it back up. And that's exactly what the demons of the Ontario Police Department committed. Again, I've documented before, the only thing that's amazing is how willing the criminal is to put itself on video, because there is no reconciling this frequency, this wealth of documentation that could not be manufactured, that could not be anything other than what it is that I have consistently captured. And it's not just the Ontario Police Department. The Los Angeles Police Department shares the pattern of conduct. Now you're talking about what is mental illness with regard to the continuous engagement in it for no legitimate purpose whatsoever, and the ongoing delusion with regard to what is an inevitable series of consequences for police departments engaging in terrorism in the way in which I've exposed it, and yet the police department is still doing it. Okay, that's an unlawful threat as well, which is you're always cognizant of that when the entity is going going to be prosecuted in court, okay? And details about what they did, how they did it, what they knew when they did it, what they continue to do in spite of that knowledge, okay? And what are the what's the reasonable harms that's anticipated from such conduct, from such attitudes? How do you respond as a society to that? These are the things that are going to be relevant with regard to prosecuting domestic terrorists like the Ontario Police Department. It's currently 11:39 p.m. This is P.O.C. I would be remiss if I didn't bring to your attention what it is that I stated about the personality defects of the mentally ill who are gang stalking, the demon possessed. And as I reference the very foolish conduct in light of the repercussions of domestic terrorism and psychological torture amongst a law enforcement community, and the prospects for the morale in the country, I am stating the entity is engaging in what is an inability to reason, an inability to rationalize, an inability to correct itself, and making a decision to engage in terrorizing an American citizen in the first place, and then also focusing on some overinflated and delusional sense of ego, because the entity is merely engaging in what is quote unquote responding to my truthful statement, because if the entity were not fearful, then they would not be engaged in what is trying to stop me from uploading evidence onto the internet. The entity would not be engaged in federal stalking, trying to make my documentation private. The entity would not be engaged in what is harassment and terrorism as I publish it, as I literally speak about them. The entity would be very much unbothered if it were a bunch of gibberish that did not affect them, that they were not the least concerned about. That could not be farther from the truth. And it's exposing the secrets of Satan. It's exposing the reality of Satan's minions, who are the demon possessed, who are the living dead, who are also actually mentally ill. And it speaks to a grand contrast with a lot of the propaganda about mental illness in this country. And the entity that engaged in what is putting itself on video again by gang stalking in helicopter is the foolish actor that I said is the case. And the entity is doing so based on what my statements, and this is what the demon possessed are focused on, as though this is some sort of tit for tat, some sort of response. And there's no competition here. By the way, there is no competition when it takes a whole state against one person. And I don't need any demon to, I'm not speaking, and I don't expect, and no demon is on any level even capable of responding to what it is that I am exposing about them and what's going to happen to them. So the entity is engaging in what is calling itself responding by engaging in very foolish behavior, which again, a government body, a population of people, family structures, businesses, and the ways in which the laws operate are going to be permanently altered by. And the entity is engaging in what is this short-sighted immediacy, this type of mindset, reactionary. This is the mind of a psychopath that engages what is killing people on the whim, having access to weapons, being in a position that they're disqualified to be in, that they have no business being in, that they're a threat to the public while they are in, hence stalking someone in helicopters. But the entity is engaging in what is behavior, like I stated, engaging in the pattern of conduct, which is documented evidence that's going to be revisited and viewed and scrutinized, detailed about what's going on. It's the pattern of conduct with regard to criminal conduct, unprecedented, unspeakable by a government, and there's consequences for it. And the immediate message in the mind of a psychopath that is a danger to themselves and the public is that they are making some sort of point, that they are not fearful, that they are in control of something, that they are appearing as anything other than demons and stalkers, actually quite maniacal, mendacious, I would say unhinged, Looney Tunes. They look absolutely psychotic, okay? While the entities engaging in what is targeting me and the way in which I have exposed what they're doing, how they're doing it, what they intend to do as they engage in each tactic, how it's been replicated so many other times, and what they typically are, the ways which I've thoroughly expounded upon everything that the entity engages in. they look foolish. It's not that the entity is not fearful. It's quite the opposite. And that's why the entity does exactly what it's going out of your way to provide more evidence against yourself, because that's what's happening. The accumulation of evidence, not any competition where you're winning something. And by the way, Satan doesn't win. Satan already lost. If you want to actually know like the truth of the entire matter, Satan already lost. The fact that you have to have a police department and that's supposed to make you look powerful, that you're stalking a woman in the middle of the night with a helicopter, and in your mind you tell yourself that that's some sort of response to an American citizen exposing you for that perverted and dangerous and psychopathic tendency, which again the police department is incentivizing, is encouraging, is facilitating, is enabling. This is again why the Ontario Police Department are going to federal prison. Those on video on May 29, 2025, gang stalking in the specific environment, engaging in the elements of monitoring just like they are right now at what is 11:50 at night. And I just want to bring to your memory everything that I state. And this is what the demon possessed are focused on, because you're dealing with the spirit, and that's what's inspiring the very sick and depraved behavior of people that are going to be held accountable for the conduct, the choices that they've made that are unlawful. Okay, so you have a responsibility in government, and there are those that have a responsibility to make sure that psychopaths and sex offenders don't get in positions like the Ontario Police Department have. So the entities engaging in what is the pattern of conduct while demons are pacing and light is flying all over the place, and the Ontario Police has found its way over me again in the sky space under the fake moon. Okay, the entities engaging in what is an obvious pattern of conduct, nothing mysterious about it, and there is also nothing that is reasonably questionable about not only what the Ontario Police Department is engaging in, but the reasons for which they engage in it, because anybody can engage in what is a common sense reasoning breakdown behind why someone would engage in what it is that they're doing, and also with the level of exposure that it's at. Remember, this was never intended to be exposed. So the entities engaging in this at this level of exposure, under some delusion that they are appearing as though they are making some sort of substantial response. There's no response to being exposed for gang stalking. It's going to be prosecution and an unprecedented basis of domestic terrorism in the country. The entity is engaging in what is manifesting demons as they are triggered by my documentation. This is what the two demons at 7-Eleven did last night, and that's why they're going to federal prison. And this is what, again, Mike Lorenz's department, he's being removed from law enforcement, and every gang stalking officer with that department is being removed as clearly as you hear the helicopter in the background. And this is the this is the cause of the corruption in the city of Ontario. The actually mentally ill population is engaging in and are placed in positions that they are a threat to the public in doing so. While I'm speaking about the entity that is failing and making any sort of sizable response, which documentation for domestic terrorism as a police department is not something that you respond to with more stalking of a woman at night in a satanic manner. That is exposing what is the mental illness of Mike Lorenz, of L. Martinez, of C. Torres, of what is Nathan Morgan, of B. Hook, of even the gang stalkers who are the people of the state, including Tracy Banks. They share an identical condition, and the demon in that helicopter engaged in, again, flying in a circle above me, exhibiting that mental illness while they are triggered about the truth that I speak about them, and they are always tending to find themselves over me in helicopter. And it is going to result in whether the disbanding of the Ontario Police Department, because the entity cannot control itself, cannot compose itself, because of the calm and calculated manner in which I dissect the criminal activity and the satanic behaviors of a corrupt government that is going to be removed from the positions that it is currently occupying, and that's based on what is years of serving Satan, and the entity secretly serving Satan is no more, and the entity secretly targeting American citizens with the people of the state is no more as well. There's no coincidence that while I'm speaking about that, while I'm speaking about the foolishness, that's not speaking to and demonstrating the absence of fear. It's speaking to the overwhelming presence of fear to engage in such foolish behavior, and concerning yourself with things that don't matter, like what other people think when you're going to prison. The entity is engaging in a pattern of conduct which is very obvious, and it's also plain to see with regard to what justice requires. Okay, and it requires federal prison for the gang stalkers on May 29, 2025. because this is the department that was engaged in kidnapping pursuant to criminal surveillance. With the people of the state that are pacing right now, the people of the state are the one that summoned this gang stalking police department. And all aspects of that criminal conduct are fully surrounded with what is supportive evidence that precedes the kidnapping on May 29th, and they're going to federal prison and mental asylums for it. The demons that are gang stalking and the ways in which I've shown you mental illness is being manifested as the demonic pacing in helicopters. Demon-possessed gang stalkers that engage in such conduct will be subject to mental asylums as opposed to federal prison, which it is axiomatic. When you are gang stalking as a police department, as a police officer, you're going to federal prison. If you demonstrate severe mental instability in gang stalking as it's documented, you're going to a mental asylum, such as Exhibit A, flying in circles over the targeted individual, whom all they have to do is hold up a camera and document you doing that as a matter of what is a pattern of conduct. That's the body of evidence that the Ontario Police Department has provided to myself, and it is going to remove permanently everybody that is associated with the Ontario Police Department from law enforcement. They're not going to any other town or any other state ever having anything to do with law enforcement, and you can also mark my words on that. The entities engaging in what is exhibiting its mental illness, the more that I expose Satan, the more that Satan's true nature is it comes out, and it comes out in the behavior, and it comes out in the environment. All right, that's amplified audible activity. That is amplified audible activity. It's the same thing with the impossible light, the tornadoes of light inside of Starbucks. The more that I speak to the truth, the more that Satan's true character is exhibited in the environment and in the behavior of the demon possessed who are all stalking me together. This is the department and this is the community that's obsessed with my vagina. Okay, this is that same one, the one that's flying in circles over me and then flying away and coming back when I'm talking about how foolish it is to do that on video, to do it on podcast. That demon is obsessed with my vagina. Okay, that's the truth of the demon possessed who are gang stalking, and yet again another day of embarrassing themselves, of prosecuting themselves, of exposing themselves, of judging themselves, because this is something at this point where you are looking like nothing other than a baboon. You're looking like a fool. You don't look like you're making any sort of response when you are being documented in order to be prosecuted. This is not some secret competition where we are exchanging voodoo tactics and you're going to go your way and mine when we have some sort of satanic duel. There are people who are going to federal prison. There are businesses and there are departments in government that are going to be shut down permanently. And that is, again, no small thing. The entities engaging in behavior such that there are no sizable and long-term consequences, and that's because they're delusional psychopaths who are a threat to themselves and the public. I cannot stress that enough. While you're witnessing me expose gang stalking by a police department who yet again on another night is seeming to find its way over my head, all around me. Also, it's not coincidental. It is stalking. It's in an environment that is supernatural. That is speaking to what is very specific, intentional, and deliberate within a pattern of conduct, in other words. It is currently, I just wanted to add that on, it's 11:57 p.m. on still what is June 12th, 2025. And this is a police department engaging in what is violence against a woman. Stalking, the utmost violent conduct against a woman, using planes and helicopters to do so, absurdly psychopathic. Yes, you are capable, and that is the personality of one capable of murder. Okay, the Ontario Police Department engaging in what is gang stalking upon law enforcement, they have plenty of blood on their hands. Absolutely. It is currently 11:58 p.m. This is P.O.C. Ontario Police is gang stalking in the plaza and over here, in the plaza over here, and the Ontario Police is flying in a circle over here, engaging in a satanic ritual. And the people of the state are pacing. You know, the engineered light flies all over the place when they cross path. They're driving in this. They're monitoring. And the Ontario Police is obsessed with me flying in circles incessantly. It's again it's 12:05 a.m. has not left from flying over me. It's still flying over me. And now that I'm recording, ceased from flying in a circle over there, is now crossing path, flying over here. Remember when I was on video, when I was speaking on podcast, you heard the helicopter. That's evidence I'm going to use against the Ontario Police Department. You can hear the helicopter activity. They're stalking while I'm documenting in real time, and they fly off while I stop recording. Ontario Police gang stalking, flying down the street, violating the speeding laws while they're gang stalking me. Doing so while they are then driving into this plaza over here, while this demon is flying in a circle, and the Ontario police are engaging in what is driving over 80 miles per hour. They're speeding very fast on down this street, and they're doing so because they're gang stalking me. They're violating the speeding laws while they're stalking me, and doing so with this demon in a helicopter that's pacing, and it's now flying all around because I started recording. It's still stalking. That's light activity, relevant positioning, and audible activity monitoring. And here are all the shadows proving that to you. This is again ongoing monitoring conduct, and the entity is doing so in these lights. You don't have multiple shadows per how many light bulbs you have. That's not the normal light activity. That's a demon stalking me in a helicopter. Ongoing evidence against Nathan Morgan, B. Hook, C. Torres, and L. Martinez, who are gang stalking police officers. That's an oxymoron. There's no such thing as a gang stalking police officer. They're going to federal prison for being domestic terrorists and doing so under the guise of engaging in law enforcement, which is also why the Ontario Police Department is being disbanded. Engaging in what is kidnapping is the line. All right, you're taking people's liberty while you're stalking them. And they're the same ones that take American citizens' lives and then tell the story about what happened. They're the ones that are engaging in what is making up the information with regard to what they're supposed to be investigating as well. They have too much ability to control the narrative, too much discretion. It must be met with federal prison. That demon, that psychopath, that bastard has the audacity to be flying in a circle repeatedly, incessantly, while I'm documenting on podcasts. And then the demon flies by in a vehicle, stalking a relevant position down there, while all these co-defendants continuously keep pacing. They're stalking. They're ongoing stalking. Helicopter here. The demons in the parking lot over there, surrounding me, in other words. The Ontario Police Department are surrounding. And as I start recording, you're watching that demon fly around out of vision. Still stalking. Okay, it is currently 12:07 p.m. All of this is going toward federal prison for gang stalking, kidnapping police officers. Okay, Satan's little wannabes that are feigning being cops, and they're not legitimate cops. They're going to federal prison. Everybody that put their hands on me, everybody that had anything to do with kidnapping me, when I lost my liberty, you're going to prison for it. And your partners are providing evidence as to why you're going to federal prison for what you did, which is documented, and what you were doing, which is this gang stalking when you committed kidnapping. This entire department, you're going to prison. It is currently, by the way, 12:08 a.m., where the people of the state are gang stalking with the government, and the Ontario Police Department is gang stalking as surely as you see third parties crossing path and impossible light activity under the fake moon in conformity to the government's pattern of conduct. It's the government's pattern of conduct. The government's being prosecuted, and the government's criminal activity also prosecutes the people of the state. And the government's criminal conduct is going to serve to put its own brothers in federal prison, their own brothers and sisters in prison. P.O.C. This is impunity of the Ontario Police. They're stalking. Light activity, relevant positioning, audible activity. That's P.O.C. P.O.C. Ontario Police is going to federal prison. Psychopaths are being removed from law enforcement. P.O.C. Flying over my head again. That is Ontario Police exhibiting serious fear and exhibiting severe mental illness. And Ontario Police is in a vehicle driving north on Euclid Avenue right now, crossing paths, stalking in the path with light, at the same time that the Ontario Police flies over my head in helicopter. And these are the demons whose mental illness is being uncloseted, unveiled for the world to witness. It is psychopathic, and they are very fearful. The demon-possessed suffer from what are unhealthy size of egos. They are the people that engage in inflicting harm on other people when they're scared. This is how they are, demonstrating their delusion with regard to who they think they are, or what they think they're capable of, or what they're going to get away with. These are the things that psychopaths tell themselves. The entity is openly engaged in criminal conduct that no one is reasonably questioning about a police department, and no one is going to second guess what I, the person that documented it and investigated it and proven the entity to be engaging, is also going to give me anything less than justice, than what justice requires. So Ontario Police is loitering in the path, like I stated, in that parking lot where the gym is located, where the plaza where I'm documenting the Ontario Police last night, loitering in the path while the entity flies around on that video that I captured again. And the moment that I review my podcast in order to convert. I always convert my videos into podcasts so you can listen to them as well. As I start engaging Operation My Device, in other words, the demon of the Ontario Police, and you'll see in images because I immediately go to the camera and I take pictures, and you're seeing the demon take another lap around, flying around me, and then you can hear it on podcast, which is why I'm recording now, flies directly over the top of my head. At the same time, the demonic synchronicity, the demons are pacing. The people of the state are doing their role, pacing in engineer light, monitoring together, obsessively stalking in the path, one crossing path, one, they're pacing all around me, flying over my head, and the Ontario Police are pacing while they're driving what is east on Hope Boulevard, and then making a right turn to turn north on Euclid Avenue. At the moment that you're hearing the helicopter at the loudest, they're flying over my head, and Ontario Police are gang stalking with that helicopter. That's Ontario Police that is surrounding, okay? So I just want to make sure that I narrate that. This is the entity that is very much engaged, is exhibiting mental illness, and this is actual mental illness, as opposed to what the entity likes to project and inaccurately and it literally just makes up information, can't even intelligently engage in what is trying to manufacture mental illness. But there's no intelligent way to do it. The entity is merely engaging what is relying on subjectivity, relying on illusions, relying on plain fabrications and misrepresentations of fact. But nonetheless, the entity is actually exhibiting mental illness when you're looking at the behavior. This narcissistic behavior, you're looking at this defiant behavior, you're looking at this criminal behavior, antithetical to what law enforcement should be engaging in. There's also on the surface, no level of explanation regarding why am I subjected to such heavy helicopter activity, including while I'm inside of Tracy Banks's apartment, the one who summoned the Ontario Police, maliciously targeting me in doing so. The entity is engaging in what is an obvious iteration of the pattern of conduct, and to do so so openly is again a demon's deceitful, a demon's mind is deceived by Satan in thinking that they are accomplishing something and they are only harming themselves and the department. They're going to federal prison for kidnapping. The Ontario Police is not going to survive as a police department, and it's also going to be used as a tutorial, literally a study, with regard to this system of gang stalking amongst the demon-possessed who are maliciously acting as a government operation, the way in which gang stalking is embedded into society, how the corrupt population acts together as one in targeting American citizens, and also how the misuse of law, the fictitious exercise of authority under the law, is used to oppress American citizens. All these things are going to be used while the entity is, under no circumstances exhibiting the lack of concern. They're very much concerned. The fact that they're following me around in helicopters shows you that. I just want you to get beyond what is the surface level. The demon-possessed, they sit around and tell each other that they're brave. They tell each other that they are smart. They tell each other that they're capable, but they are all stalking me. Okay, and that says enough. Not only that, they are all stalking me when I'm not even seeking them out. I don't even know these people, and I have not told them about my skill set. I haven't told them about my abilities. I have not told them about my interests. The entities, these are demons who are, under all circumstances, inferior, and that's because they serve Satan. They're inferior. You're also literally inferior when you are a demon and when you're stalking someone, and you're stalking as a whole department. It says volumes about the Ontario Police Department, contrary to what they clearly are telling themselves when they stare in the mirror, telling themselves that they are something tremendous because they crawl into helicopters and follow women around at night. That is again Satan that is lying, and it's mental illness in operation. It's mental illness in effect, and this is relevant because there's a lot of propaganda out there about mental illness that doesn't exist. When you're subject to what is spiritual attacks, and you're being told things about how you feel about yourself or how you feel about other people or what you want to do, Satan is a spirit, and Satan attacks your mind. And but by the way, these demons of the Ontario Police Department, they are being used by Satan, and Satan has them thinking that they should do this and they should do that and they should keep on doing it, even if it's going on the internet, even if everybody's seeing what law enforcement is engaged in Ontario, California, even if other law enforcement agencies are going to be affected by the level of corruption that the Ontario Police Department has engaged in, proven, not just alleged, not just rumored, but proven. Regardless of that, Satan is telling them to engage in very foolish behavior, and they're listening. Okay, the entities engaging in what is criminal conduct nonetheless, regardless of their spiritual inferiority, regardless of their lack of integrity, regardless of the absence of any ethical presence whatsoever, no ethical, not a strand of ethical behavior or whatsoever, or ethical mindset. And the entity is desperate with regard to continuously engaging in that which is clearly not working out well for them. And it's not going to end well for them either. It is only an ego that is deceiving that person that continuously engages in that. And it is a demonstration of fear. It's an outward behavior of mental illness, actually. Mental illness, which is speaking to that which is desiring to focus on another person. And the person that they're focusing on is focusing on prosecuting them. So this is, again, a trap for the demon possessed. Okay. I'm capturing all of the video documentation of stalking and harassment and terrorism by helicopter by a very specific police department that is in conformity, however, to police departments far away from Ontario, where they're under a fake sun that remains over me as well. They're not only stalking and harassing me by helicopters as a police department, also engaged in kidnapping me as a pattern, but they're demon possessed. And that speaks to their fascination, their obsession with me, their inferiority to me. All right. And that inferiority is what bothers them, is what triggers them. But that is, again, speaking to their mental illness that they need help with. And that's what federal prison is built into: mental examinations, and also the mental asylum for those that engage in what this demon of the Ontario Police Department is doing, which is repeatedly pacing. And there will be no mystery with regard to who's going to federal prison, with regard to who was flying the helicopter, with regard to who was in custody of it. This is information that's going to be routinely produced in a prosecution for domestic terrorism. The entity is engaging in a pattern of conduct, and justice is going to be served. I'm going to put it that way. Justice is going to be served. There's not going to be any anonymity. There's no anonymity right now. The Lord Jesus knows exactly who they are, and I've told you what's going to happen to you, and it's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to federal prison, you're going to mental asylums, and you're done with law enforcement. The entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct, and they are exhibiting severe mental instability, and so are the people of the state. Okay, they are the same condition. One got past the academy and is working in a position that they have no business being in, and that is being referred to as law enforcement for now. But the other are the demon possessed that are just engaged in what is gang stalking in their everyday lives, driving their little putt-putt vehicles, or if they're a demon that thinks that they're a half step above than the one in the putt-putt because they drive a Range Rover or some used Mercedes Benz, like. The entity is engaging in what is the exact same pattern of conduct, and the condition is identical, and that's relevant to what is actual mental illness. I just want to put that out there, and I want to make sure that you do not miss that, because this is informing the behavior of people who are a threat to themselves and other people. This is not to instill fear. This is to inform you. The demon possessed are intentionally engaged in what is deceiving the masses about mental health. And this is what mental health is. And these people are mentally ill and they need to be confined. They need to be kept against their will. That's a means of targeting people who are not mentally ill whatsoever. And actually, those that are engaged in that malicious conduct are psychopaths, maniacal specifically. And they are mentally ill. They engage in things such as late night stalking in helicopters and commercial airline planes. That's what they engage. They engage in sitting around corners in ambulances, waiting with their finger on the trigger to sound sirens with every minor move that I make. They're the ones that are sitting in their vehicles outside of their homes, sitting in a dark corner in a dark parking garage on a dead-end street, stalking with some method of light while they're lurking in the darkness, just to make sure that I don't get in any place where nobody is around, in order to maintain some presence and maintain light activity. Those are psychopaths. Those are actually mentally ill people. And they are the demon possessed who are gang stalking. And currently, they are going by the Ontario Police Department. That's the name that it's going by now. But the Ontario Police Department, as surely as you hear them continuously demonstrating severe mental illness and instability and tremendous fear. That's what that is. Do not be deceived by Satan. Satan is very fearful. And the more fearful that Satan is, the more foolish Satan becomes. That's a national security threat. That is, Satan engages in more harm, kills more people, harms more people. The more fearful, the more nervous, the more anxious that Satan is. That's what's operating this helicopter. That's what's driving around me in Ontario Police Department vehicles. That's what's gang stalking me. That's what's obsessed with my vagina. That's what's incentivizing stalking me in bathrooms and stalking me every place that I go. That's what's pacing around in these vehicles right now in engineer light in the middle of the night. All right. And by the way, none of it is free, constitutional, or private conduct. And the entity is also going to learn that when you're prosecuted in the specific environment with regard to domestic terrorism, you'll be prosecuted at home, you'll be prosecuted at work, you'll be prosecuted out in public, you'll be prosecuted wherever it is that you're found. The entity has no protection with regard to the government that's engaged in what is criminal surveillance, and nobody has any shelter from that. The government has no legitimate basis to engage in it under any circumstances, and they're all exposed. They may as well be walking around in the nude. That's how exposed they are. And so is their demon possession. Okay, and that's why the Ontario Police is engaging in, again, another documented late night stalking fest. And they have no authority under the law, okay? The law enforcement is not the practice of stalking American citizens, harassing, terrorizing them, threatening them, and then engaging in what is citing law that while you're stalking them, in order to use that to engage in what is kidnapping. You never cease to be the stalker, and you are never converted into some legitimate position in that. That's not law enforcement. That's oppression. That is oppression, especially, remember, under my circumstances, the entity is gang stalking me at work. The LAPD is gang stalking me in the workplace. The inability to go to work without being free from domestic terrorism and psychological torture. The entity has created this circumstance. The entity committed an unlawful eviction, which you saw on May 29, 2025. The entity committed an unlawful eviction. The entity has created this circumstance, and then the entity wants to then feign authority under the law when you've been stalking the whole time. Those are the psychopaths that are going to be removed from law enforcement. That is not law enforcement either. And that is not the purpose for the laws as they exist and as they're enforced. And that's also going to be at the forefront of the minds of those when you are witnessing the unprecedented criminal conduct of a government and what is exposing public corruption in this country, the U.S. government that is engaged in this criminal monitoring system, and the ways in which the criminal justice system, the laws in this land are may be used to oppress an American citizen who's being targeted. And that needs to be considered. It's not always just black and white, especially when the entity is engaged in what is targeting an American citizen, all right? So it is currently, by the way, where the demon possessed are monitoring, and that includes the Ontario Police Department. It goes without saying, I said a lot, but it goes without saying, because don't ever be deceived. The demon possessed are very foolish, and that's how I have thousands, over 6,000 videos of them gang stalking me. That's because the demon possessed are foolish. The entities engaging in what is a show of fear by flying over my head. That show of fear is damning evidence, however, and there are people that are going to federal prison by it. They're going to federal prison. I literally have the evidence to prove, are you stalking me? But I literally have the evidence. With my eyes closed, I can prosecute. But this is something that, again, the government is going to give justice, and the government is going to give sizable justice. Sizable. All right. It is currently, again, 12:24 a.m. This is going for what is going to be still June 12th, even though it's gone into June 13th because the terrorism by a helicopter over my head, which I captured on video. Going between podcast and video, and the demon kept pacing. I stopped recording, resuming the amplified helicopter activity. They go out of sight, and I start processing the podcast. As soon as I do that, resuming the amplified helicopter activity, I'm documenting all that because they're going to prison for it. So the entity is going on with it and focusing on me, and going on the next day, then you're going on an ongoing competition trying to slow me down from uploading the evidence onto the internet as they engage in, again, a sick ongoing cycle of stalking, and then scared to death about me putting it on the internet. The entity is engaging in that, and no one's forgetting it. They forgot about what I documented 2 weeks ago, but it's sitting on the record, and no federal court's going to forget it either. They forgot about what I documented 2 months ago, but I didn't, and no federal court's forgotten it either. And they're certainly not going to forget who's going to federal prison for gang stalking as a police department. It is currently, again, it's June 13th now. It's 12:25 a.m. This is going on the podcast for June 12th to conclude it, and it's consistent. And I will resume for June 13th, 2025. It is, again, 12:25 a.m. This is P.O.C.